Then we'll come to order. Senators will be in their seats. Clerk will call the roll.
Alley, Baumgardner, Billinger, Bowers, Clays, Corson, Dietrich, Dahl, Erickson, Pegg, Voscadeau, Francisco, Gossage, Haley, Hawk, Hildebrand, Holland, Holscher, Hershen, Cluse, Longbine, Masterson, McGinn, Olson, O'Shea, Peck, Peterson, Petty, Pittman, Kyle, Reichman, Steffen, Straub, Sullentrop, Sykes, Thompson, Tyson, Ware, Warren, Wilborn.
Senators and your guests, please rise and give prayerful attention to the guest chaplain, Doug Hinkle.
Pray. Good morning, Heavenly Father. Thank you for all you've done for us. You've blessed us with all we need, even today and in this chamber, as the matter at hand is debated. In your word, you guide us, saying, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lead not on your own understanding. In all your ways, submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Lord, we have a tendency to trust ourselves rather than you, to rely on our own abilities and good intentions instead of your sovereign goodness and loving care. Father, you care about all the details of our lives, including the issue before this legislative body this morning. You care about every word spoken. Cause this body to strive for resolution where there's conflict, to know when to give way and when to hold the line, to listen twice as much as they speak, and may they listen well. I pray for your peace today, which is far beyond our understanding. I ask that you give each senator wisdom as they argue their position. I lift up President Masterson, Vice President Wilburn, Majority Leader Alley, and Minority Leader Sykes to you. Give them your direction as they lead this chamber. I pray that at the end of the day, the deliberations in this chamber would lead to sound decisions that would honor you and bless all Kansans. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic that stands, one nation indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please note references to bills on page 1 through 3 of the calendar. Messages from the House, the clerk will read.
The House concurs in Senate amendments to HB 2477.
Chair recognizes Majority Leader Alley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself into a committee of a whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of general orders.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Chair appoints a senator from Saline, Senator Clays, to preside over the committee of the whole.
Morning, Senators. The Senate, having resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole, will now consider those items listed on the calendar under the heading of General Orders. We will now turn our attention to substitute for Senate Bill 355. The chair recognizes the senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn, to explain the bill and adopt the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the hour we've been waiting for after 6 months of deliberate action on the effort of redistricting, which we are challenged with every 10 years in Kansas and in the United States. We conducted, as most of you know, 14 town hall meetings. I won't go into the detail of every town. We had 4 additional virtual meetings, took a lot of testimony, and at the end of the day, we recognized that the 3rd district had more population than was allowed by law, and the 1st district was short. So that quite obviously meant that we had to redraw the lines. We all know that. Some of the things that we heard throughout the tour was put KU and K-State back in the same district. The regents complained about that 10 years ago. We did just that. KU and K-State have a lot in common. People think that K-State is just a land-grant ag college. It is, that is true, but less than 20% of their population. Their student enrollment is agriculture. The rest of it's engineering, architecture, education, and business. And there are others. They also are home to the MBATH. And the MBATH is a huge national facility that shares their research responsibilities with the University of Kansas, and matter of fact, eventually with Missouri University and Iowa State University. That will be a bioscience corridor in the future, and many of the federal grants that come down directly to the state of Kansas, and would be beneficial to both of those universities if they had one congressman. So we put KU and K-State in the same district. The other thing we heard was keep Johnson County whole. We did that. We heard testimony saying that we'd like to keep Johnson County and Wyandotte together. That's not possible, as you know, with the numbers. Keep Southeast Kansas in the 2nd district. We did just that. And we keep the 4th district intact because the numbers were just about within the margin of error. Even though Butler and Sedgwick County did show growth, the satellite counties around it suffered, so the overall district impact was little change. Some will say, by the way, the tolerance in these 4 districts is 0, and that is what the courts said last time, and that's what we accomplished. Many of the proposed maps have deviations and variances which are questionable at the very best. Some people say that we have changed the voting outcome. The voting outcome for the governor of Kansas, for the 3rd district congressman, would still have won. As a matter of fact, the governor would have won by 15 points in the 3rd district. So there's no change in the outcome when those are trend-lined and checked out. I don't plan to talk very long. My style has always been brief and to the point. I will say this again. I regret that I missed the redistricting committee yesterday, but I did watch it on YouTube just once. And so with that, I will close my remarks and stand for questions.
Are there questions for the senator from McPherson? Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have lots of questions for the carrier of this map, but before we get to the map, I want to discuss the entire redistricting process that has led us here today, where we're going to vote on and probably pass congressional maps that are both unconstitutional because they dilute minority voting strength and because they do not even follow many of the Redistricting Committee's own guidelines. And I want to discuss the entire process, and I appreciate the body's indulgence because while I personally have very strong feelings about the way this entire committee has been run, going back to the town halls this summer, all the way through last night's committee meeting, what I want to do to start is to lay out as plainly and in as purely factual of a manner as I know how we arrived at this point where we are going to vote on the maps that our constituents will have to live under for the next decade. Because what I want to do is I want our constituents, I want the people watching us here today to be able to judge for themselves whether we've done the people's business in a way that they should be proud of. Whether we've done the people's business in a way that benefits the people, not that advantages a political party. Did we, as we heard at every single stop on the redistricting town hall, conduct this process with, quote, unprecedented transparency? Or did we put partisan politics over our own people? So I want to start with this process from the very, very beginning. So this summer, I found out from reporters on July 30th that a week-long redistricting tour was set to start on August 9th. I wasn't consulted, even though I was a member of the committee. Neither was the ranking member of the committee. I would have thought that if my friends in the other party were serious about conducting themselves with, quote, unprecedented transparency, that before a public announcement, they would have reached out to make sure that the minority party would be able to participate. Because surely, if your goal is unprecedented transparency, the participation of both parties should be important. Thankfully, though, I was able, on short notice, to take a week off of work and secure the childcare that I needed to be able to be away from home for a week. I know that similar challenges were presented to our constituents, which were given only 10 days notice of their opportunity to participate. And I wanted to think that maybe we were just working out the kinks and maybe things with this committee would get better. But the unprecedented transparency that we were promised, it never came. One obvious thing that should have been done as a committee before our town halls was adopt the guidelines that we would be using in drawing maps. So it would have been clear to the public what criteria we would be using so they could provide more meaningful testimony. But we did not adopt guidelines until December, well after the conclusion of both our in-person and our virtual town halls. Another reason why we missed the mark when it came to unprecedented transparency is that the town halls were held at the worst possible time. They were held right before we received the 2020 census data. The thing that you'll hear that you heard already alluded to from the good senator is that redistricting really is all about math, and it's all about the numbers. Well, what we did by holding the redistricting town halls before we had the census data, what we did was we deprived Kansans of understanding the basis for the entire redistricting process and how that math, as it kept being called in committee, would affect their community. So again, I would ask, is that unprecedented transparency? And I want to pause on why this is so important, because you heard it mentioned in the opening remarks that some committee members remember testimony about a desire to keep all of Johnson and Wyandotte counties together, and how we now, with the benefit of the 2020 census data, know that that is not possible to keep them entirely together because of the growth of the two counties. Unfortunately, those who spoke to us at our town hall, our citizens, because of when the town halls were scheduled, they did not have the benefit of knowing that. And so it was reasonable for them to assume that we would be able to keep all of Johnson and all of Wyandotte together, because that is what had been done previously in 2012. Also concerned about when the town halls were scheduled. 10 of the 14 town halls were held during the middle of the workday, which excluded a large swath of Kansans from participating. The length of the town halls was cut from 2.5 hours in 2012 to 75 minutes last summer. Johnson County, my county, and the county of others in this body was treated especially poorly in this process, despite being our state's largest and fastest growing county. Because the minority party was not even consulted about the schedule or our availability, I was not given the opportunity to let the committee know that the one town hall scheduled in Johnson County, and we only had one, our state's largest county, was being held in the afternoon during the work week at literally the exact time kids in the Shawnee Mission School District were finishing their first day of school. I can't tell you how many parents I talked to who were unable to testify because they needed to pick up their kids after that first day. Despite these obstacles, our community had a great showing. Over 300 people packed into the Matt Ross Community Center. But because we had so many people, and because the majority party had decided to limit the length of the town halls to only 75 minutes instead of 2.5 hours, my constituents in Johnson County only had 2 minutes to address the committee, where those who testified at town halls in more rural locations had 5, 10, or even unlimited amounts of time to talk to the committee about what their community wanted. So, question that I have for the good senator is, why did the majority party decide to schedule and announce the town halls without even consulting with members of the committee from the minority party?
Thank
Senator
you,
from
Mr. Chairman.
McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I can't answer that question because we obviously went to the revisers' research and said we need to schedule those meetings, and I just assumed that you were had been in contact. That's all I can respond to that.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Why did the majority party decide to have 14 town halls condensed into a 5-day period when in 2012, the hearings were spread out over 4 months?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
I can't answer that specifically other than I want to remind everybody in this body that this is a citizen legislature. People do have jobs, legislators have jobs, and it was felt that was the most efficient for the staff, the research staff, the reviser staff, and the legislators to condense in a shorter time frame so they could blank out their calendars and do their civic duty.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
I intend no disrespect, but I find it interesting that it's not important to give citizen legislators who have other jobs more than 10 days notice of these town halls. That's not important, but it's important that we do condense them over 1 week. I think that's an interesting answer to my question. Why did the majority party decide to schedule the town halls before the release of the census data when in 2012, the hearings did not start until after the detailed Census Bureau data was available?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you will recall, the Biden administration was late in getting the census data out by 90 days. So the timing was about the same. The census data just got here late.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Did the Biden administration conduct the 2020 census?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
To the best of my recall, they did not.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Sorry, you said they did not?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Mr. Chair, ask the question again. I did not get the right date.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did the Biden administration conduct the 2020 census?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Biden administration didn't conduct that, but the Bureau of Census was late in getting the data out. It was all under the Biden administration.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
So it was actually the Trump administration that conducted the 2020 census. Is that correct?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to answer the question. This line of questioning is starting to become, sounds like a courtroom. Frankly, I don't care whether it's Trump administration or the Biden administration, the fact still remains that the census was not released for at least 90 days to what had been historically in May. We didn't get the data till late after our meetings.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you. So we actually received the census data on the Thursday of the week that we were having these town halls. So why couldn't we have just had the town halls a week or two later? We're not talking about needing to delay town halls for months. Why couldn't we have waited just another week or two? We had these town halls starting August 9th. Why couldn't we have them in, instead of that week, why couldn't we have had them in one of the following weeks in August?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we all know, these town hall meetings takes a lot of organization from different departments such as research, revisers, other logistics for town meetings, and to spin on a dime to change it almost is not possible.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Well, I don't think anything would have had to have been changed. The date was publicly announced of when the census data was going to be available, so all we had to do was actually just schedule the town halls for a couple weeks later in August.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
I think that's about all my response. I think we've run this line of questioning to the ground.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Why did the majority party decide to schedule the town halls before adopting redistricting guidelines and criteria, when in 2012 the hearings did not start until after the redistricting guidelines and criteria had been established?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason for scheduling the guidelines after was that was on the agenda the way we chose to do it in that order.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Why did the majority party decide to schedule 10 of the 14 town halls during the day when it was so difficult for many Kansans to participate?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We actually had 4 virtual town hall meetings in the evening, and the turnout was actually less than when we scheduled them in the day. So I think the argument that scheduling in the day, even though it may have prohibited some from coming, the turnouts were much better in the day than in the evening.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Those town halls, those virtual town halls that the good senator referenced, those were held on the Monday and Tuesday before Thanksgiving and the Monday and Tuesday after Thanksgiving. Is that correct?
Senator from
I'll have to
McPherson,
trust your
Senator
judgment.
Wilborn. Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to talk now about kind of what this committee process has been like now that we got back into session. So the public and the committee members, we first saw this map on Tuesday at our 2:30 p.m. redistricting meeting. Is that correct?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Best of my recall, Mr. Chairman, I think that's correct.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members of the public were then only given until 10 a.m. on Wednesday to submit testimony or sign up to testify about the map that was released at 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday. Is that correct?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll have to trust the good senator from Johnson that he's accurate. I don't have the log in front of me.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And the underlying data for those maps was not available at the time that the maps were released to the committee and the public.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Again, Mr. Chairman, I assume that the good senator from Johnson is accurate on that. I don't have that log in front of me, wasn't prepared for that.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Does that meet the good senator's definition of unprecedented transparency?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, that is not my definition. That's just apparently a contrived definition by the minority party.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So despite these challenges, we had 86 Kansans, including some of my constituents, who took time out of their busy lives to submit written testimony to the committee. And unfortunately, the committee never had an opportunity to consider that testimony. The testimony was not available until after the committee ended at 1:30 p.m. yesterday. I, like most of the committee, had a 1:30 p.m. committee meeting, and then we were on the floor at 2:30 yesterday to debate 2 bills. The committee resumed at 5:30 p.m. last night, right after we finished our work on the floor. And when the minority leader asked if we could have time to read and consider our constituents' testimony before moving these maps out of committee, we were told no. We were told that we had to vote on the maps in last night's committee meeting. So again, my question, does that meet the good senator's definition of unprecedented transparency?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was not here yesterday. I was not aware of that dialogue. And as far as definitions of this that you're proposing is pretty much your opinion.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question really is, what is the rush? Why are these maps being so fast-tracked? Why do we need to vote out these maps on January 21st? Why is the majority party so afraid of giving the public, who has to then live under these maps for the next decade, adequate time to provide input, adequate time to receive and analyze the underlying data?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair. In my opinion, we have taken ample time. We have taken a lot of input. A lot of input has been given to the research department. We've had the town hall meetings. We've had the virtual meetings. We've had other testimony. And it seems to me we've had quite a few maps submitted for review, many of them out of compliance. So we're moving along at a pace in which we can complete this work and do the rest of the work for the Senate the rest of the year.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to yield the floor to the senator from Leavenworth.
Senator from Leavenworth, Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that, Senator from Johnson. You know, when Senator brought these up, he's gone through the process. I'm not going to dwell on the process, on the questions about how the process happened before this week. But this week's process, I have a big issue with getting a map on Tuesday, having the only review be 1 day from the public. And we're told we cannot have an amendment except it's got to have a 3-day lead time. I believe that was the guidance most of the folks in this room were given if they weren't on that committee. So if we wanted to have an amendment on a map, we needed to have 3 days for the revisers because a lot of numbers, a lot of locations, and I understand the process is difficult. But tell me this, I don't understand. This is rhetorical. I actually don't want to need an answer on this one. How is one to get a map on Tuesday to make an amendment, which I've been working with research to get this map drawn and the amendments made, trying to get it done before this morning, but unfortunately we've had a lot of other things going on. In 3 days' time to actually have the amendment considered in the committee or even on the floor. We have shotgunned the process and we've cut everybody who's not on that committee out of this process. This map, I don't agree with the map. It's true. I think there's a better map now that we have numbers. I represent some of Wyandotte. They're a unified government. I don't like that it's getting cut up by this map. It will come out. We'll talk about that later or in committee. I also really don't understand how we can have Lawrence inside of this in the same district as the rest of Western Kansas. I think there are better solutions, and maybe there aren't. Let's just give it a possibility, but maybe there are a couple of ideas floating around that we have not given the body the just chance to consider. This is not a serial process. It doesn't have to be congressional map, then Senate map. We can work these in parallel. There is a rush, but not the hyper rush of 2 to 3 days of shotgunning this through. It's difficult to absorb. I'm getting a lot of feedback from constituents that these look gerrymandered, whether the majority party feels like they are not. And the looks and the optics of this aren't good. We can do better as a body. We as a body should be proud of the maps we put together, and if there's a little compromise here and there, it's a great thing. I went through and looked at the maps and said, what could we do now that we have the numbers out, the census data that the good senator talked about, now that we know that Wyandotte and Johnson can't necessarily have everything together, even though that was a very major push from certain parties. What could we do? There are options that we need to put out there to consider. As we slice up Lawrence, as we slice up the 2nd District, as we take Fort Riley away from Fort Leavenworth and CD2, there are options here we need to consider. And then I looked at the map and I realized we're wringing our hands on how we slice up Northeast Kansas. We're putting all the focus on Wyandotte, Lawrence, and pulling them into all these other districts. When we look at this, CD2 doesn't have an identity in this new map. Northeast Kansas has an identity. When we put the Veterans Home application and the bill together, we talked about Northeast Kansas. We knew what that meant. We knew that meant Gary. We knew that meant Lawrence, Leavenworth, Wyandotte. And I look at this, and the one thing that never changes on these maps is the magic halo of Wichita. Wichita has a population center and it has counties around it. But somehow, Northeast Kansas is required to slice and dice, and we have to make all these machinations to change these districts. But somehow, this map being pushed by leadership, whether they know it or not, through their own optics, they're a majority from the Wichita region, and it's difficult for folks to get outside of their own districts to really understand this is putting a lot of strain on Northeast Kansas. And I think we need to review this and get some more feedback from the public for maybe a week. With that, Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a motion that we actually refer this back to the Redistricting Committee.
You've heard the motion. The motion is in order. It is debatable. Are there any questions on the motion? Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm obviously opposed to this motion. It just prolongs the debate that we're going to eventually have to have anyway. As far as getting a lot of input, I've had a lot of input also through emails strongly supporting this map. So it's just a matter of opinion. It matters where you live. So I would be opposed to this motion.
Chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would support this motion. As the good senator from Johnson talked about the process that we went through, even before the committee meeting yesterday, I don't feel confident that this map represents Kansas. As of yesterday, as the good senator told you, we had over 70 pieces of written testimony. And as I've looked over those, only 12 were in support of Ad Astra. And out of 7 of the 8 who gave oral testimony were also against Ad Astra. We really have not had a chance to dig into this and let the committee process work. So I would support this motion, and I would suggest all of you do what is best for Kansans so that we can come out with a good product and work together to have the voice of Kansans heard in this process. Thank you.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand that there were listening sessions in August. I attended the one that was held in Douglas County, and I was asked not to speak. I was told there would be plenty of time for legislators to have input during the session. So my question, and I think it has to do with whether we send this back to committee or not, has that been accommodated?
Senator, we're on a motion from the senator from Leavenworth. If the senator from McPherson would stand for that question, we'll allow it.
I did not comprehend what she was saying.
Senator from Douglas, would you care to restate your question?
I would be happy to. I attended the listening session on redistricting that was held in Douglas County. I had submitted written testimony, but I also came with some graphics, and I was asked and pretty much told not to speak, and at the same time told that there would be plenty of time during this session for legislators to have input. So I'm just asking, how has that been accommodated? Why are we ready at this time to debate this map?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The good senator from Douglas is correct. When we held the town hall meetings, we did have a couple legislators speak up, and we all jointly agreed that let's hold the peace for legislatures not to testify anymore after that point. I think the first town hall there was a legislator there. And after that point, we stopped that practice. And so no legislators were allowed to speak at any of the town halls. It was totally public input.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
I consider myself a member of the public as well as a legislator. But in this case, I was also told that there would be plenty of time during this session for legislators to have input. I am supporting this motion to send it back to committee because I do not think that that has been granted. My other question had to do with the statement that the committee took a lot of testimony. And I'm asking if the committee reviewed or asked the staff to review that testimony and provide a summary. Do we know how much of that testimony is addressed in this map? How much goes counter to this map? And I would be interested in that. If it has not been done, another good reason to send this back to committee.
Senator, just a reminder that we are on a motion to re-refer back to committee and not on the process of the map. If the senator from McPherson wishes to respond and stand for a question, we'll allow it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To step back just a moment on the other part, allow time for the legislators to have input. That's what we're doing today. Legislators on this floor will be talking to these issues all day. So you will have your opportunity for input now.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think having input after a map has been presented is different from having input to the committee to consider during that process. And again, I believe that we did not, or the question about whether the testimony had been reviewed, whether there's a summary of that testimony, how it fits with this map, has not been answered. I think that's important to have before we have this debate, and that's why I support the motion to send it back to committee. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'm going to beg your forbearance because the questions I have to do with the motion to refer this back to committee. So my first question, so that I can make this decision, is to whomever called the redistricting meeting yesterday. As the chair was not here, was it the vice chair who called that committee, Mr. Chairman?
The chair is not in possession of that information, and I do not know who I could call upon to answer that, Senator.
So would you ask the senator from McPherson if he knows who called the meeting yesterday, Mr. Chairman?
If the senator from McPherson will stand for that question, I'll allow it.
I am not 100% certain, but the meeting yesterday, unfortunately I had to be out of town, had been scheduled. It was on the calendar.
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
And Mr. Chairman, since the meeting was scheduled, can someone tell me the purpose of that meeting and what was accomplished in that meeting? Because I got to know whether I'm going to refer this back or not, but I want to know what the purpose of the meeting yesterday was. I understand there was an amendment, and I'd like to have a little clarification on that.
The chair is uncertain who you are directing your question to recognize.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it's either going to be the chair of the committee or the vice chair of the committee who ran the committee and knows what happened in that committee meeting.
Senator from McPherson, if you will stand for that question, we'll allow it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was not at the committee, but it was to redraw a line around an Indian reservation, getting the whole reservation into the 2nd District. And that was the little adjustment, and the population tweak that I took, if I'm understanding correctly, was a little tweak in Douglas County. And I was not there. That is the information I had.
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So now we know there was a tweak, there was an amendment yesterday, and I'm trying to figure out whether I'm going to support this motion. I may not support it at this time, but a tweak. So, Mr. Chairman, we were given a map called Ad Astra 1. Then yesterday it was determined in committee that that map wasn't right. It needed a tweak. And I'd like clarification because I think he said the tweak was in Douglas County, but that's not what appears when I look at the two maps where the tweak was, Mr. Chairman. Can they explain where the tweak was? Can you, please?
The chair recognizes the president, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, this is starting to feel a little silly, but so the purpose of a hearing is to actually hear the bill that's before you. It was put on the calendar Tuesday after the introductions. Unfortunately, the vice president and chair of that had a death to deal with and a funeral, so I operated the hearing. During the hearing of the bill, minority party actually pointed out they had a question around the reservation that was up in the Northeast, and it seemed like, I mean, although looking back, you look at even Oklahoma, Arizona, New Mexico, there are often reservations split. It's not a legal issue. It's a political decision. But it seemed like such a minor line change, it would be easy to do, which it was. Made the adjustment. The committee decided to make the adjustment to make sure that it followed instead of the county line, which was kind of a guideline, to follow the reservation line instead in that area. And that is what happened, and that is what was voted out, and it's that simple.
Reminder, we are in a motion to re-refer.
That's right.
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
So, Mr. Chairman, you know, despite the condescending remarks that were on silliness, which we are not, this is a very serious matter to the people of Kansas. But it appears a tweak needed to be made. And it was pointed out in committee that that needed to be made, so they made it. So that's an admission that the first map was not correct. That's an admission that Ad Astra 1 wasn't right, in their opinion. They had to fix it. And I would, you know, I'm not going to argue the map right now, but the motion to refer is not out of order, but it's a motion that says we need to consider the map more. I think the motion needs to come after the amendments are offered today on the floor, so that everybody gets to see what's out there from other non-redistricting committee members, okay? And so I'm not going to support this, but I do want to point out, Mr. Chairman, that it is a fact that they went in and tweaked the map. And it can be done again and again and again until we get it right. And it's obvious, you know, from everything I've heard. I had a discussion yesterday, Mr. Chairman, and this has to do with the motion. I had a discussion with a reporter yesterday about the very fact that that reservation was divided in Jackson County, in my Senate district, and I thought that that was terrible. But I guess I have one other question. I've made up my mind where I'm at on a motion, Mr. Chairman, but did that tweak split voting districts? Precincts? Mr. Chairman, can I get that answer from the President of the Senate?
I'll recognize the senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn, who serves on the committee.
Again, all I can tell you is what I've read in the minutes and also what I've heard. the adjustment was minor in the way of population, so the counter adjustment was minor in the way of fixing it. Whether to move the line or not was a policy decision, a political decision, and it just seemed to make sense to make the move.
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Well, sad I can't get an answer as to whether it split the precincts, but I think we know, that it did change the population numbers. So if they were 0 before that change and now they're still 0, I guess question begs, why is it still 0 when it was 0 before, and then you took people out of District 4. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will not at this time support this motion. I think that there are amendments pending that I want to hear from and see, but it is obvious, Mr. Chairman, that this motion is probably a good motion in the sense that there's a lot of stuff that could be tweaked on this map, a lot of it. And it's obvious also the points that the senator has made from Leavenworth that this map is being drawn from a couple of points of interest, and then the other 2 districts are basically just falling where they can make the lines fit. So anyway, I will sit down. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question of clarification, and it actually goes to the senator from Brown, or not directed at the senator, but questions that he brought forth, as well as the senator from Douglas. I believe the senator from McPherson said that the legislative input is on the floor today. Can you tell me how long it takes for a technical review if someone wanted an amendment on a map?
Again, we're on a motion to re-refer. If the senator from McPherson wishes to stand for the question, we'll allow it.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not certain of how much time. Just a minute, I'll try to get an accurate answer. I've heard a number of things. I understand, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, the response is, I understand their caucus has submitted a map and it has been reviewed if they're wondering about their map.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you for that, and I appreciate that, but I am a member of the committee and I have been working on maps, but I think there are members in this body who did not get to see the map until that got kicked out of committee until after 7 o'clock yesterday, and it is my understanding that technical review for anything takes 3 days if one of our other senators would like to offer a map. And yes, I was able to get amendments on existing maps, but I think as we discussed in committee yesterday, I don't think any of the 3 maps are ready to be passed out, and that's what the committee process would have done if we had used the committee appropriately. So again, I will support the motion to send this back to committee so that all senators have the option to have their voices heard for their constituents and have the 3 days to offer amendments. Thank you.
Further questions for the senator from Leavenworth? Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just an observation, but it appears there are a number of amendments floating around the Senate floor today. They got them prepared, so apparently they're ready.
Senator from Leavenworth, Senator Pittman.
Before I close, I just had a question for the chair of the Redistricting Committee. As we look at this map, we noticed that it's really has a good focus on the Wichita area, but I have got to give you credit where credit's due. I don't know who drew the map, so maybe the senator could maybe let us know who the originator of this particular map was, so I'm not casting aspersions towards the wrong folks.
Senator, we're on your motion to re-refer.
I know, I was just wondering if, as we think about this.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn, will you stand for that question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the good senator from Leavenworth knows, each caucus has the hardware, software, and a specialist in their office. I have a attended a number of sessions with the specialists in our office to draw the maps. So has the President of the Senate. And if you want to focus on the 4th District, the 4th District needed the least amount of adjustments of all the districts. Butler and Sedgwick County population had grown enough to fill the satellite counties to make it a whole district. That is not true of the other 3 districts.
Senator from Leavenworth, Senator Pittman, on your motion.
Well, I also think CD2 could have been the basis of a map, and it could have shrunk just a little bit more and been positioned, and maybe we could have carved a little bit out of the CD4 and more appropriately had the Western Kansas interest included in that CD1 versus Lawrence. There are a lot of things that we can talk about. There are ideas on the table. We're talking about a 2 to 3 day process, having a map introduced and trying to pass it out of the Senate. I appreciate the Senator from Brown. I understand he's not going to vote at this time. Maybe we'll make another motion if this one fails at the end of the day. I don't know. I'm not really necessarily casting aspersions on the committee. I really truly believe we need another week or two to allow. We were told that those technical amendments took 3 days. They magically took a half an hour last night on that one technical change. I don't know if I would have had the same voice to have made that happen, unfortunately, but that's the way it is. When we're not in leadership, when we're not the majority, we don't get all the perks, I suppose. I understand that. But this is Kansas. This is an important deal. I'm sorry if it sounds silly to some to say, hey, we need to work on this further. I think it makes sense. I'm proud of the work we do up here, and I'm proud of all my colleagues who do this work. I just think we can do better here, Mr. Chair. So if we have no more questions, I'll just go ahead.
Any further questions for the Senator from Leavenworth? Seeing none, you may close.
Closing, I'd like to move my motion.
All those in favor of the motion to re-refer, say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion fails. Roll call's been requested. Being 5 hands, a roll call is in order. Clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Baumgardner. Billinger. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Ag. Boscadeau. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Hawk. Hildebrand. Holland. Holscher. Hershen. Cluse. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Pittman. Pyle. Reichman. Steffen. Straub. Sullentrop. Sykes. Thompson. Tyson. Ware. Warren. Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Any senator wish to change their vote? Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle. Will be recorded. Any further changes? Any senator wish to explain their vote? Clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. 8 having voted yes, 26 no. The motion fails. We're back on the bill. Questions? I'm sorry, the senator from Leavenworth, Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sad that it went along party lines. I suppose that's to be predicted when we're drawing these maps. It's unfortunate. I think we can work better together than apart. I think that those in Northeast Kansas and Topeka and Brown and Johnson and Wyandotte would behoove to look at your map and understand that we're losing a voice here in Northeast Kansas with this current ad astra map, and we can do better. One question before I sit down, I suppose, to the good chair is when we talk about bringing Lawrence into the big one, did anybody look at pulling some of those votes, or those, sorry, not votes, population, if you will, out of CD4, out of the big area of either Hutchinson or Wichita area, where it's it's more like Western Kansas from a cultural, from so many different factors. Did someone look at that? And then what is the idea behind having Lawrence in that big district? If you could just kind of address that as a topic, I would really appreciate it, Mr. Chair.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Again, thank you, Mr. Chair. The answer is numerous in the fact that, first of all, we need the population, and secondly, we want to get the K-State KU back together, like I addressed when I first opened up on this bill, and that makes a lot of common sense. So KU and K-State's back together in one district, which was requested by the Board of Regents 10 years ago and numerous other folks. So that's the reason.
Senator from Leavenworth, Senator Pittman.
Mr. Chair, I suppose that means that the default answer is no one really did look at pulling some more population out of CD4 with the intent of pulling the KU campus into the western region, into that other time zone. So I'll take that as the answer. I find it difficult to believe that we're actually separating two federal installations that have been traditionally worked together, Fort Leavenworth and Riley County. Those are congressional, federal type things that need that voice, need that focus. And I'm sure other people will talk about it, but maybe I'll talk about it later about the Wyandotte split that's happening with this map. But I'm going to go ahead and sit down and yield the time to Senator from Douglas.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson, the floor has been yielded back to you. Do you wish to cede?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A comment was made that the regions were requesting to have KU and K-State in the same congressional district. Was that request made this year?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
The statement I made was the regents objected to splitting them 10 years ago. Had voiced their concerns about the two universities being separated. We have heard talk and about bringing them back together. There's been no official request recently.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Was any consideration given to having the University of Kansas and the University of Kansas School of Medicine in the same district?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Mr. Chairman, I can't address that specifically other than you do have a population problem, again, bringing Douglas into JUCO in that area. We've talked about that. We try to keep Johnson County whole, keep it consistent like it's been almost forever, and so no serious consideration.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe that the University of Kansas School of Medicine is located in Wyandotte County. Then another question I would have, I understand the change and I think it's appropriate to keep, I believe, all of the Kickapoo reservation in the same congressional district. Would it not also be reasonable to consider having the Potawatomi, Kickapoo, and the Sac and Fox reservations in the same districts.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, again, suspect that her assumption could be correct, but this is the choice we made, and this is the lines we drew. At least the reservations individually are together.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that alignment may be just as important as the alignment between the University of Kansas and Kansas State University. I did note during the comments you spoke how much K-State had programs other than agriculture, but we didn't talk much about how many agricultural programs the University of Kansas had. So again, I question how important that was, and I did not hear anything from the regents this year to ask me to look at that. Another question I have, how many counties are split in this map?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me get the list so I don't misspeak here. Right now, the map maintains a minimum number of split counties at 3, Pawnee, Douglas, and Wyandotte are the only split counties on the new map. Douglas and Wyandotte are primarily divided along natural and geographical barriers. And then they made a little change because of the Indian reservation. Prior, our old map, we had districts that had 3 counties split also.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you. I understand that it had originally been 3 and maybe with the change is now 4. But my concern is Douglas County was split in the past between the 2nd and the 3rd districts. And in that case, Douglas County did have communities of interest, both with areas in Johnson and Wyandotte counties, and also areas to the west in Shawnee. So to me, that was a much more appropriate split. I'm also saying maybe it's time for another county to have their turn. So I have heard from my constituents, they would like to have the county all in one district as that change was made in the maps in 2012. And I did get a detailed map of the area in Douglas County. Can you tell me how many precincts are split in Douglas County, if any?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I cannot tell you.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you. If any of the research or revisers staff could help me with that, I would be very interested, because we did have testimony from our county clerk at the redistricting hearing that was held in Douglas County about the problems that has created for him. And I would be negligent if I didn't ask that question about this map. Thank you.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If the carrier would stand for some questions.
You will.
Thank you. So what does the Ad-Astra map do to the minority voting strength of Wyandotte County?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got half the question. Could you repeat
Senator
that,
from
please?
Johnson, Senator Sykes for a repeat.
Yes. What does the Ad-Astra 2 map do to the minority voting strength of Wyandotte County?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
I would assume what you're driving at is it weakens the minority strength, but it strengthens the minority strength in the 2nd district.
Okay, thank you for that.
Senator
so can
from
you
Johnson,
tell me how?
Senator Sykes.
Sorry, thank you. So can you tell me how guideline 4C says the core of existing congressional districts should be preserved? So if we're shifting from congressional district 3 and actually splitting probably the minority vote in half, can you explain how that keeps the core of both congressional district 2 and congressional district 3 as close to what they currently are as possible?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I've mentioned before, the first item on the agenda when we drew the maps had to be populations, to get populations equalized in the districts. By using the I-70 and the river as a barrier or natural break in breaking off the northern Wyandotte County into the 2nd District. That brought those folks into the 2nd District, strengthening the minority interest in matching up with the minority interest in Shawnee County.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
So can you go a little bit more into detail about how this map protects the voting rights of those minority groups by bringing the minority group from Wyandotte into Shawnee? I believe that's what you said.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I understand you correctly, I just stated it a minute ago. It strengthens their voice in the 2nd District. There will be more in the 2nd District. No longer as many in the 3rd, but more in the 2nd.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
I guess I would still have a question of how that goes with guideline number 4C of keeping the core of existing congressional districts preserved, but I will move on. Do you believe that this preserves an urban core?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, ask her what urban core is she speaking of?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
I think probably the Congressional District 3 would be a great place to start.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I find myself repeating myself again. Again, it's a population issue to begin with. We have been asked, again, you asked about if we had a survey, put KU, K-State together, keep Johnson County whole, keep Southeast Kansas in the 2nd. That's why we stuck with the program we had.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Were there other maps that maybe kept those congressional districts more compact that possibly would have preserved an urban core in a better manner and also dealing with population?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to yield to the President of the Senate, the Vice Chair of the Redistricting Committee.
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've kind of stumbled onto kind of the core of the whole entire debate. Pun intended, the core. Because that 4C rule, the core of existing congressional districts should be preserved. And the political decision that was made, based on all the input, is that the core of the 3rd District is Johnson County. It has never been divided. The 3rd District has seen pieces of Wyandotte, pieces of Douglas, pieces of Miami, pieces of Franklin. Johnson County's never been divided. So the political decision was that is the core. The minority party's trying to invent a new core for that district. But historically, it has been Johnson County. And that is the beginning of every other decision on the map. Because if you preserve the core, follow 4C, things have to change. Because that is a 600,000 plus county, which is the core. Makes no sense to divide it. Everything else is a subset of that decision and how that happens. I was thankful the numbers come out that the minority voice was preserved. Just not in a way that a certain segment wants to see it, but it was preserved. The guidelines were met, the core is maintained, minority voice retained. All this is distraction. The core is Johnson County. Everything else is a subset of that. So I would contend any map that divides Johnson County violates 4C. It's the definition of the core. Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No further response.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you. I appreciate that input, and I think part of this is Well, we heard in our testimony, so the input that I documented and heard from the hearings in Wyandotte and Johnson, actually, I think it was 65%, if I do this, were clear. Public testimony during the town halls was very clear that the greater Kansas City metro be kept together as a priority for those communities. Being someone who lives in that community, and we talk about the four core, across the line, the greater Kansas City chamber, all of that, the greater Kansas City metro is more so that core than all of Johnson County, but that's, I think we all heard different things in those redistricting, but as going back over 65% of residents in Johnson and Wyandotte that decided to testify spoke of the greater Kansas City metro. But so can you talk a little bit about, let's just go to the 3rd district as we talked about that. How does Johnson, Miami, Franklin, and Anderson, can you tell me, other than population alone, what do those communities have in common with one another?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Again, Mr. Chairman, the satellite counties have a lot in common as it relates to projected future growth. The population of the greater Johnson County is migrating that direction. Obviously, there is a trade district, an entertainment district, an attraction by greater Johnson County. There is a media market. KCKT, Channel 5, reaches out to those counties. There is a commonality that politically adopts to fit greater Johnson County.
Thank you. I would also say that media market hits...
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Sorry, I'm getting all excited. I would also say that media market also reaches to north of I-70, but I could be incorrect. But how are the economic interests of Johnson County compare to the interests of Franklin and Anderson? And I think I talked about this, setting aside the love of barbecue, and Guy Mays is one of my favorites, and it is in Franklin County. But other than that, what are some of the economic interests that are similar?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I would assume, I haven't seen any economic studies, but I'm certain there are a number of employees that drive into the greater Johnson County area every day to go to work at factories and return home to their farms or hobby ranches and the residences in those counties. Those counties historically have been in the 3rd district.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you. So as you talk about those interests, north of I-70 is the Legend, Sporting Kansas City, Hollywood Casino, and the rest of the city of Kansas City. So why is this different from the southern part of Wyandotte County?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I find myself repeating again. The population was needed to shore up the 2nd district. And there is obviously interchange of commerce, business, but the Johnson County district, 3rd district, is as its core, and that is the way the map was driven.
So I'm hearing that your number one priority was...
Senator, please hold.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, I would like to yield to the good senator from Miami, who is much more knowledgeable about the commerce and the respects of that district. Senator Baumgartner.
Senator from Miami, Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I do want to speak to what was just posed by the senator from Johnson, as well as the prior question. So what is that causal link? What is the link between Johnson County? What would be the potential investment of residents of Miami County? So having the privilege to represent not only Miami County, but also Johnson, I feel that I can speak specifically to that. Miami County is, in fact, it's the bedroom county for Johnson County. a majority of all residents in Miami County actually work in Johnson. There is another component when we talk about industry and how possibly could Johnson County be linked with Miami, with Franklin, and with Anderson. Also having the privilege of my district to extend from state line over to county line of Johnson County, we have one of the largest intermodals, not just in the state, not just in the Midwest, but in North America. And in fact, many manufacturing companies, I'll just mention Kubota. Kubota chose my Senate district to be the location for their North American distribution facility. And in fact, they not only built the initial facility, but they quadrupled the size and put in a new facility several years ago. I believe it was 3 years ago in the intermodal. When we look at transportation to and from the intermodal, we not only have Burlington Northern Santa Fe, but even more crucial is what we see in our highways. 69 highway, north and south, Johnson County, Miami County, all the way down to the furthest corner of the state of Kansas. You have major intermodal transportation going to and from on 69. Then let's just deviate about 8 miles west, and you're going to get to 169. In fact, the trucking transportation on 169 is nearly identical to that of 69 highway. It is a major thoroughfare, and it's going to take you either through 68 highway to Franklin County, or you're going to continue going south to Anderson County. So to say that those 4 counties are not inherently connected, not only from employment, because Franklin County residents, as well as Anderson County and Miami County residents, they do drive to Johnson for employment, but also that major transportation engine that's coming from that intermodal is going right through all 4 of those counties. I would also like to point out something that's been ignored. And I know that my colleague, actually to my right, could share this sentiment. But when you have smaller populated counties that are divided with regard to congressional representation, which is exactly what happens in Miami County. You know, what happened to Miami County, because it was just a little sliver, was in the 3rd district. That first election that occurred with our current Congresswoman, she never even came to Miami County. She never even came to Miami County. She never met with folks at the University of Kansas either, even though at the time that was what was carved out as the 3rd district. So what I have heard from my constituents is they are delighted to finally have Miami County whole and not divided with 2 different congressional districts. So it was what I know the committee heard loud and clear from my constituents is don't split us up. Don't split up Johnson County. Please make Miami County whole. So I appreciate the good work of the committee, and I hope you just got a little primer of why Miami, Anderson, and Franklin are so crucial, because they are the workforce for not only those small counties, but primarily for Johnson. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yield returns to the senator from McPherson. Do you have further comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to thank the good senator from Miami, who was much more knowledgeable about the local conditions, because that is her district. Thank you.
Turning to the senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you to the senator from Miami for that. And I would say actually all 3 maps that were introduced kept Miami County whole, because we had heard that in So all of those are good viable options of keeping Miami and their interests together. And actually, at the testimony of one of those, actually there were members from Miami County saying, please take us out of Johnson County because our interests are not the same. And I know there would be varying testimony on that, but that was actually in the testimony received. So I will actually yield to the senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to put a little bit of a finer point on a good point that was made by our minority leader, because it seems like, and this kind of was made clear to me in committee yesterday, and it sounds like same on the floor, that really what we've done is given up the opportunity that we have to put together a map that will keep us out of court. It seems like it's conceded that whatever comes out of here today there is going to be a race to the courthouse. We will then abdicate our duty under the Kansas Constitution for the legislature to draw maps. We will put ourselves in the same position as in 2012, where we are for months and months in litigation. So because that is been decided, that rather than take our time and put together a really quality product, we're just going to rush this out and then create a race to the courthouse. I want to talk about what that race to the courthouse is going to happen when folks arrive on the courthouse steps. Because the first thing that a court is going to do when they look at legal challenges to this Ad Astra 2 map is they are going to say, our state has 105 counties. It has one majority-minority county, Wyandotte County. What Ad Astra 2 does is it cracks that county right down the middle of it, dilutes minority voting in the 3rd district, puts half of those voters into another congressional district, deprives them of the ability to elect a member of their choosing. So let me give you just the exact numbers, because that's gonna be the legal argument that we'll all see in the legal briefs. So what is the court gonna see with respect to the Ad Astra 2 map in the 3rd congressional district? So the enacted map from 2012 had 46,547 black voters in the 3rd congressional district, 7.8% of voters. Ad Astra 2 has only 25,240 black voters, cuts the percentage from 7.8% to 4.5%, takes out a net of 21,307 voters. That's a 45.78% decrease in the percentage of black voters in the 3rd congressional district under Ad Astra 2. We know that it doesn't have to be this way because we have the United Map. The United Map complies with all the other guidelines. The United Map retains 45,495 black voters and actually increases the overall percentage up to 8.2%. With respect to Hispanic voters in the 3rd congressional district, what was enacted in 2012 had 70,288 Hispanic voters. 11.8% of the 3rd congressional district enacted in 2012 was Hispanic. The Ad Astra 2 map cuts that down to from 70,288 to only 47,341, only 8.5%. That's a 32.65% decrease. In net loss of Hispanic voters, that's 22,947. Again, we know that it doesn't have to be that way because we have the United Map that meets all of the other guidelines, and we have 67,485 Hispanic voters. We actually increased the percentage of Hispanic voters in the 3rd district to 12.2%. So that is going to be the very first thing a court is going to look at, because we have one majority-minority county cracked right down the middle, and those numbers, I think, speak for themselves, but I'd be curious if the good senator wants to respond to those numbers and percentages.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would answer the good senator from Johnson with a question. Has he calculated the difference it makes in the 2nd district? What increase of those voters would change that number? It seems to me one voter going from one district to the other would enhance the other district. Secondly, it's a misstatement to say that it's a majority minority. There's no such thing, I've been told by counsel.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
So I want to correct, I want to respond to that. There is no majority minority district. Wyandotte County is 37% white. It is the only county that is not majority white in the state of Kansas. I do have the numbers for the 2nd congressional district. I appreciate that question, but I do want to make the point that this is not a situation where you can say that you've done a huge legal wrong to people in the 3rd congressional district, but a court should ignore that because we have not done that same wrong in the 2nd district. You have taken voters who have had the ability to elect a member of Congress of their own choosing. Those voters, majority of them, which are racial minorities, have decided to elect an LGBTQ woman who is also a racial minority. They made that decision in 2018 overwhelmingly. They made that decision in 2020. Those same voters would no longer have the ability to vote for that same elected representative. That's what a court's going to look at. I just want to be clear that that is what is legally important. It is those particular voters. It is not the net number of voters who are now going to be in the 2nd district who are a racial minority. It is the number of people who can no longer vote for the minority member of Congress of their choosing that they previously have had the opportunity to elect. But I do want to, since the question was asked, I do want to answer it with respect to the 2nd congressional district. 2nd congressional district, as enacted in 2012, 25,351 black. 4.6% of the voters in that district. The Ad Astra map increases that number by a significant amount, 22,284. So it goes up to 47,635. It goes from 4.6% to 8.6%. That's with respect to black voters. I will note that the United map keeps the number of black voters in the 2nd congressional district. We can do it in a way that doesn't involve gerrymandering. We can keep the number of black voters in the 2nd district the same, which is what our guidelines require us to do. The number will be 25,194. With respect to Hispanic voters, in the enacted map in 2012, we have 32,969 Hispanic voters, 6% of the 2nd congressional district. Ad Astra map increases that because they crack Wyandotte County, and it increases that number to 59,029. Goes up to 10.6%. It increases it net by 26,060 voters. The United map, again, because what we try to do is keep districts compact, keep the core of existing districts, it keeps the number of Hispanic voters almost identical, actually increases it to 34,290. So we go from 6% to 6.1%. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'd like to yield to the good senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple quick things. I think there was a misstatement, or I might have misheard it. Wyandotte is not the only county that is not a majority white. You have Seward, Ford, and Finney that are also in that condition that has a majority minority population. I also found it fascinating. I think Senator from Johnson's probably going to be a wealthy attorney since he can read the minds of justices and what they may or may not decide. And here's the little trick on numbers, right? Because you'll notice, well, we had a 45% reduction in the percentage in the 3rd, but we didn't talk about then the 2nd, because here's how numbers work, right? So to go 7-8 to 4-5, percentages of percentages warp the impression, which tries to leave a false impression to the public. So that's a 45% reduction in the 3rd. Well, going from 4.6 to 8.6 in the 2nd. Well, flip it around. That's an 87% increase in the minority voice in the second. So here's how this works, right? If 1% becomes 3%, that's a 300% gain. If 3% becomes 1%, that's a 67% loss. 4 becomes 8, 100% gain. 8 becomes 4, 50% loss. What, if 49 becomes 51, is that a 2% gain or a 100% difference in the majority? So it's a spin on numbers that is leading to a false impression in the public debate. The chairman is absolutely right. It strengthened the minority voice in the second. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you. I want to turn a little bit to that same decision with respect to the Ad Astra map and its treatment in Douglas County. Were you aware when you drew the Ad Astra map that Lawrence is the most racially diverse city in Douglas County?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm aware of a number of communities. Finney County, Garden City, very racially diverse, 50-some cultures and languages. Stewart County, very diverse. Ford County, very diverse. Scott County, very diverse. I haven't tallied up which gets number one. I do know that there is a diverse population in Douglas County, but that is not the only county that is diverse in the state of Kansas. I will tell you for sure.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thanks. I appreciate that. My question was a lot more simple than that answer, but I did appreciate it. It was really just, are you aware that Lawrence is the most racially diverse city in Douglas County?
Are you asking that question to be answered? Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If what the good senator stated is true, then I'm aware of it now, but I am aware that they have a diverse community. As far as number ones, I don't want to talk about the ranking.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
So I do want to point out to the body that I find it interesting. The original map divided 3 counties. Ad Astra 2 map now divides 4 counties. But what was originally presented to us, and even now with 2 out of the 4, what was broken up was a racially diverse county cracked Wyandotte County, and then Douglas County cracked taking the most racially diverse city in that county and putting it in another district. So of the decisions to split counties, I think it is very telling that 2 out of the 4 counties that are split involve taking highly diverse areas and cracking them and putting them in different congressional districts. And I think that's going to have a lot of relevance as we move on in this. Did your decision, Mr. Chair, to move Lawrence into the 1st congressional district have anything to do with needing to take Democratic voters out of the 2nd district to keep that a Republican district to make up for the Democrats from Wyandotte that are now going to be in the 2nd district because you cracked Wyandotte?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That didn't cross my mind.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you. I have no further questions at this time, but I still have some in the barrel, but I will step down for now. Thank you.
The floor returns to the Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes. Do you wish to cede?
I will yield to the senator from Leavenworth.
Floor has been yielded to the Senator from Leavenworth, Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. The term just came up, cracking and packing. It's a gerrymandering term for those listening. It's meant to sink votes. Packing is when you pack a bunch of partisan votes into one district. Cracking is when you separate it out. I hope we're not intentionally doing that here. Although it smells like that. I don't want to accuse anybody of that. But it does smell like that when you look at the kind of weird S-shaped formation of the 2nd district, which, we mentioned cores. We had the good president talk about the core of the CD3, Johnson County. The core of CD4 apparently is Wichita. A lot of industry down there. We have our friends down there, Boeing, the Koch brothers, keeping it real solid down there in CD4. It looks really good for them. CD2 and CD3, once again, I return to Northeast Kansas, a growth engine in this economy. is getting separated. The good senator from Miami talked about the satellite workers going into Johnson County, talked about the industrial. We have in our district in Western Wyandotte, Urban Outfitters, major national distribution center, much like she's talking about. In fact, Miami County sounds a little bit more like Leavenworth than it does Johnson County. The good senator mentioned it's a numbers game. Johnson County plus Douglas County is 5,000 votes away from meeting that number. 5,000. We find that out. If we had this back in the committee, we could talk about that and look at options there. That's a pretty solid core. I can think of no other city that's like Lawrence than those in Johnson County. They're very similar, well-educated folks. There's a lot of diversity. I see that and I say that is a core. But let's return to Wyandotte and Johnson. There's CD3 currently. Let's call one of those a core. Wyandotte County is a unified government. It's a county that's chosen by its own volition to unify with the city within it. It's a bubble of a local entity. And it's not over the limits of any congressional district by far. It's got Bonner on the left, on the west side. It's got Edwardsville, which do have local governments of cities. Those could legitimately be carved out. But as a local entity to be kept whole, I can think of no other solid barrier to getting separated than having that unified government that's still within the boundaries of a congressional district's numbers to be kept solid. And if I were going to make a decision between cutting up Wyandotte, which has this unified government, operates as a whole, versus Johnson County, I'd have to default to cutting up that southern half of southern parts of Johnson County because there are individual cities that have lots of different characteristics. And it's still a little bit rural on the southern side. It's just a little bit different down south in the southern part of Johnson County. Beautiful country. But I'm not saying that's a good map either. I'm saying we should have discussed that and understood the character of Wyandotte County as a unified government. And I'm not here to debate where we would actually slice up Johnson County, or if we would. We kind of want to keep it whole as a core. But there are options here that we are not talking about. They're focused on Northeast Kansas. We're keeping this whole for Wichita. And I don't know, I don't want to call it a Koch map, Koch brother map, but it seems like it's focused on Wichita, 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 and Topeka, Lawrence, Northeast Kansas, even Johnson County. We're diluting what we're doing here. And I don't know, I'm going to yield the floor to the senator from Douglas.
Senator, we're not going to allow for nested yields. If you'd like to yield the floor back to Senator Sykes, I will recognize the senator from Douglas next.
I'll yield back to Senator Sykes.
Senator Sykes.
I will yield to the senator from Douglas.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to say that I did get an answer to my question from research. And 8 precincts are split between congressional districts by the map drawn for the split in Douglas County. This is after our county clerk came and testified about the problem of splitting precincts. So again, 8 precincts are split between congressional districts. That means neighbors who talk to each other and are talking about voting are going to have very interesting conversations, but we should, if we can't keep a county whole, we should at least make efforts to keep a majority of the precincts whole. Thank you.
Floor returns back to the senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
All right, out of fairness, I will yield to the senator from Johnson. Senator Gossage.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are more of us in this body from Johnson County as Johnson County is being discussed, and I serve on the committee. I just want to indicate that we are having a lot of discussion here about the importance of keeping Wyandotte County together. As we were doing our listening tour, we did hear keep Johnson and Wyandotte County together. keep the counties whole. This map does try very carefully to keep the counties whole and stay within the numbers that we have to have. The growth in my district is the 4th in the state. The growth in Senator Baumgartner's district, District 37, has the highest growth in the state. Obviously, the growth in the Johnson County area is moving west and south. Since we only get to draw these maps once every 10 years, we need to anticipate where that growth is going to be and to make sure that those people are not disenfranchised. Obviously, with the growth in Johnson and Wyandotte counties, but majority is in Johnson County, we cannot keep the two of those together. We did hear over and over, please keep Johnson and Wyandotte counties together, on why it's important to keep them together. We cannot do that. So one of those counties would have to split. But since the majority of the growth is in Johnson County, I just want to point out, Mr. Chair, that it's very important, as our president said, that Johnson County has been historically and still is the hub of the 3rd District. And I just wanted to bring that out. Thank you very much.
The chair appreciates the yield from the senator from Johnson. You may continue, Senator Sykes.
Thank you. I think we've had some great discussion up to this point. And I think this Ad Astra 2 map makes significant changes to the configuration of our existing congressional districts when there are only minimal changes that are needed, and actually to address a map that actually has passed the courts. So the guidelines that we approved talk about the compactness as much as possible, and with the population growth, as the senator from Johnson said, in Johnson and Wyandotte, it's not possible to keep those two counties whole. But when 65% of the constituents who participated in testimony saying keep the greater Kansas City metro, and we're splitting an urban area and even dividing Wyandotte County into different commission districts and things like that. But with that, I will offer an amendment, and I have turned it in, and it is 2794.
We'll pause to have that distributed. Senator, would you care to explain your amendment, or would you like it read?
I will explain it because I don't think any of us would understand if we start reading blocks. But so this is the United map, and it is more compact by almost every of the 10 measures of compactness available to us through the Maptitude software. United versus the enacted map on this compactness district. 1 is a 7 out of 10, District 2 is 8 out of 10, District 3, 8 out of 10, the 4th District, 10 out of 10. United versus Ad Astra, and my apologies because I think this is a little outdated because this was Ad Astra 1 and we're now at Ad Astra 2, so there may be a little bit of discrepancies, but United, when compared to Ad Astra on this compactness, is a 9 out of 10, an 8 out of 10 in District 2, a 10 out of 10 in District 3, and a 9 out of 10 in District 4. We split 0 precincts, and as we just learned from the senator from Douglas, we haven't looked at the entire state, but in Douglas County alone, the Ad Astra 2 map splits 8 precincts. County splits are unavoidable when drawing the congressional map. In many counties that we did split, keeping those divisions as small and as cohesive as possible was a priority. Ad Astra does split 4 counties. The bottom line, the United map splits only 1 more county than our currently enacted map, and actually it is the same as Ad Astra 2 because as we learned, Ad Astra 2 does split 4 counties. So avoiding the split of counties is the last guideline on the list, and it's the least important compared to others. Communities of interest, geographic factors, and other political subdivisions were taken into consideration when dividing the counties. The Ad Astra plan, Ad Astra 2 plan dilutes minority voting strength, creates non-compact district, does not consider communities of interest, and does not maintain the core of all of our existing districts. With that, I could go into more detail, but I would actually stand for questions.
We'll pause for a moment and allow staff to get the handouts out. It appears they are out. Questions on the amendment? Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question specifically, but I would like to comment. I noticed they got more counties split than we had, and we were criticized for the few that we had. Number two, we are committed to keeping Johnson County together, and Ad Astra 2 does just that. In addition, this map was vetted and voted down in committee. So I strongly oppose this proposed amendment.
The chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you. I appreciate the good senator from McPherson. And actually, if you look at Ad Astra 2, you actually divide 4 counties. That would be Pawnee, Jackson, Douglas, and Wyandotte. So we are the same on United versus Ad Astra 2. And I appreciate you trying to keep Johnson County together. This is my home county, as we all know, and I am proud of Johnson County, proud to be from Johnson County. But I think looking at the testimony that we heard from 65%, it was not keep Johnson County whole. It was not keep Wyandotte County whole. It was keep the greater Kansas City metro whole. Thank you.
Further questions? Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question, but in looking at the map for the United, it looks to me like the core of Congressional District 2 is much better preserved. In fact, the core, I believe, of all 4 congressional districts is preserved in this map. I very much appreciate that. It does also keep our reservations for the Kickapoo, Potawatomi, and Sac and Fox together. It provides a what looks like a much more or a set of much more compact and contiguous districts. So I very much appreciate this amendment being introduced, and I can easily support it.
Chair recognizes the senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just quick observation. The map appears to crack and pack Johnson County. Understand that's a term of art. So gerrymandering is clearly in the eye of the beholder. So with that, I would just say this, in our opinion, my opinion particularly, this splits the core of the 3rd district and gerrymanders it for purposes of another party. So I would oppose. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you. We know that the whole of both Johnson and Wyandotte cannot be kept together due to population numbers. This map keeps the core of the KC metro area intact. The 2nd district portion of Johnson County is culturally very different from the 3rd. You can look at this in even some of the COVID policies that our county has chosen over the last 2 years. Minimal splitting of townships, only Aubrey Township had to be divided in Johnson County. Racially diverse communities within the metro are held intact. Larger percentages of minority voters are also present, preserving and strengthening minority voters' power to elect representatives at their choice. An extremely compact and contiguous district with very few branches as possible. KCK and JOCO have been in the same district since the 1970s, and this map preserves that core as much as possible.
Further questions on the amendment? Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Petty.
Thank you. Really, this isn't a question. It's just a piece of information from concerning Wyandotte County. And the map that's proposed, one of the things is that when you represent the smallest county in the state, but yet a growing county, it's very important to, and diverse, to look at maintaining those respects for the diversity of that county and what's going on. This map does take that into consideration. It does not split up, as was mentioned earlier, it does not split up any commission districts of that unified government. And as you know, we only have 2 unified governments in the state of Kansas, Kansas, Wyandotte County being the first and the largest. It also does not split up that minority vote, which is so, which I think is one of the factors, but also is so important to respecting the diversity of the county that I represent. It was mentioned earlier concerning employment, and the comment was made about not splitting up another senator's county because of where people work. And that would be so true of Wyandotte County because of our private businesses that are in Wyandotte County. Over 60% of the employees in those businesses either live in Johnson County or Kansas City, Missouri. So we are a hub of employment for Johnson County. The other thing that's from as I've spoken just moments ago to my county administrator's office, there's great concern about the interest in projects that are currently being looked at from a federal perspective and from federal funding, one of those being a $500 million flood control project along the Missouri River, which with the Corps of Engineers has a commonality with those that are currently in the 3rd District, but would certainly, that interest would be diluted if you're splitting up this county. And I know there's a lot of water interests in other parts of the state, but it's very important to look at maintaining this when we've already been able to work with the Metropolitan Regional Council to acquire those federal funds, as well as the Quindaro Ruins, which are another project that's being looked at for federal funding as well. So I'm bringing up these issues because this map, the United map, actually keeps the Wyandotte County whole and keeps us united in that core. It was mentioned about the core that wants to be maintained. It's interesting, this is the core, we talk about Johnson County, that's grown in the last 10 years the most in the state of Kansas. And so it seems that might be a reason to consider to look at how that core is more alike, what parts of it are more alike than are diverse, which is respected within the United map that's presented and not respected within the Ed Astor. So I very much support this.
Further questions on the amendment? Seeing none, Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes, you may close.
I would move that we move this amendment, and I would ask for a roll call vote.
A roll call has been requested. Seeing 5 hands, a roll call is in order. Clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Baumgardner. Dillinger. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Ag. Rouse-Godeau. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Hawk. Hildebrand, Holland, Holscher, Kirshen, Luce, Longbine, Masterson, McGinn, Olson, O'Shea, Heck, Peterson, Petty, Pittman, Pyle, Reichman, Steffen, Straub, Sullentrop, Sykes, Thompson, Tyson, Ware, Warren, Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Does any senator wish to change their vote? Senator from, where are you from? Senator from Montgomery. Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I go from pass to no.
Vote will be recorded. Any further changes of vote? Oh, Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A preliminary vote count, please.
Aye, 23 no. Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Seeing none, the clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Eleven voting aye, 23 nay. The motion fails. We are back on the bill. Further questions for the senator from McPherson, senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have an amendment.
Do you have the number?
Hold on. It says 2790, last four digits.
Pause for a moment while that's handed out. The map is also being passed out. Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle, if you would like to explain your amendment while the map is being passed out, we'll allow that.
Yeah, I can. Took a little time this week, drew a couple maps, and I will note this, that I think it's interesting that we had on this last map a more congruent map, a more, what I say, a better looking haircut map than what we've got before us coming from the committee. Mr. Chairman, I need to ask a question while I'm explaining this, and maybe you can answer it. If not, if someone from the committee could answer it. Did the Ad Astra map that was kicked out of committee come out with bipartisan support, or did it come out just along party lines?
the chair of the committee would stand for the question. Senator from
Thank you.
McPherson, Senator
Thank
Wilborn.
you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The answer is yes.
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Yes, it was partisan.
Party lines.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Apologize, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chair. Yes, it was party lines.
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Thank you for that information. I appreciate that, knowing that it was party line. I have to, based on that, I have to talk about a little bit of the history. I've been through 2 of these processes. This is the 3rd one now that I've been through. And, you know, the very first process I went through, I had a district which was made up and comprised of Brown County and Donovan counties in whole. And the House map that passed didn't come out of committee. It was an amendment on the floor. And it was offered by the Democrats. And it cut my district in half. And in that map, there were like, I think, 4 districts where incumbents, there were 2 incumbents put together. So I was one of those races. The only thing different with mine and the incumbent I was put in with, we were both running again. In the other districts where they were collapsed, one of the incumbents wasn't running again. So the other incumbent was running but was not opposed by another incumbent. So we kind of got a little attention because we were 2 incumbents put together in the same House district. That year also in the Senate, and by the way, that was a bipartisan map amendment that passed on the House floor, on a House map. It wasn't a congressional map, but it was a House map. I should have refreshed my memory on a congressional map, but I didn't do that. But anyway, the Senate map that year in 2002 also passed on the Senate floor with an amendment that was a bipartisan amendment. It was an amendment that people crossed the committee and put a new map on the floor. So it doesn't have to be a committee map that passes. And of course, we all know 10 years ago, whether you were here or not, you know the judiciary basically drew those maps. So I certainly don't want that to happen again. It ought to make every one of us uncomfortable to realize that if we can't get together and come up with a map with 21 votes, we're going to end up with problems. So I have taken the liberty to draw a map, and I will be frank, I started with the 3rd district. I didn't start with the 4th district and draw it the way I want it and then go to the 3rd. And I started with the 3rd because the 3rd is the one with the numbers problem. It's where the population's growing, boomtown. So what did I do to that district? I put 2 counties together. And as you look at this map, you will not find one voting precinct divided. You will not find one county divided. Every county is whole. The clerks will love this map. But I took Wyandotte County, I put it in a second. There I said, what do we need to do? I tried to keep, as I drew this, and I kept the forts for the most part together. And this map could be tweaked. It's going to go to a conference more than likely. I doubt the House will just take this and rubber stamp it. But you could very easily add in the fort part of Geary County and take out a little bit of the 2nd, up even anywhere you want to. I mean, it could be done to keep the numbers fair. But everybody's arguing, I mean, I've heard today that, you know, we have to keep everything, well, anyway, I won't go down that path. That one's a bad rabbit trail. Another point I want to make, the senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco, pointed out that she'd heard from the clerk. Did you hear from multiple clerks or not? But I know that clerks like when we keep the precincts together. I think that if you want to vote on voter integrity, this map is the voter integrity map. We all know that when you split voting precincts, you create some issues for your clerks. And when you create issues, you create problems. When you create problems, you create more difficulties. And when you do that, you create confusion. Nothing flies in the face of voter integrity quicker or faster than problems like that. This doesn't do that. So that's one argument I make. I also believe this is the map, and we haven't heard this yet today. I'm really surprised. This map keeps rural areas rural. Western Kansas map, if you look at this map, tell me that's not pretty much Western Kansas. I understand when you get down to the southeast, the northeast, you could consider Washington County, Marshall County, you could say, it's not really Western Kansas, but we got to draw lines. But I haven't seen a map yet from the Redistricting Committee that keeps every county whole. And this isn't the only way to do it. I bet there's another way. We talk about trying to this and that on what community of interest. We talk about keeping the universities together, but we split an installation. We change those dynamics and back and forth for our arguments. I'm not going to. You're going to get a chance to vote on this. Primary reason for bringing this is if this does go to court, I want the court to look at this map. This map, I'm hoping, will pass. I hope it has bipartisan support. And I hope it can be a map that we can all agree to. And if you look at it, you see Sedgwick County is aligned with southeast Kansas. When you draw the crosshairs on the state of Kansas, Sedgwick County is part of southeast Kansas. But they continue to draw their districts, I believe, first and foremost from the 4th. And then they jump to the 3rd. I brought out a point 10 years ago on this floor. The senator that was the chair of redistricting was sitting right here. It was from Johnson County. The president of the Senate was from as far west and south as you can go, county and a state. And I asked research to bring me the numbers for the makeup of the Redistricting Committee. Some of you might remember this. And when I got those numbers, I thought, whoa, we got a rural president of the Senate drawing maps, allowing the committee to draw a map with a populace of urban people. In other words, on the Redistricting Committee, there were 3 members on the committee from the 2nd district, a rural district, 3 members from the 4th district, or the 2nd district and the big 1st. Each had 3 members. But the 4th district and the 3rd district each had 4 members. I don't know you, but I'm a rural guy. I'm going to stack that I'm going to put 4 from the 1st and 4 from the 2nd and 3 from the, I'm not going to mince words about it. But he did the opposite. And he was from a very rural area. And it got him in trouble. I didn't mean to get him in trouble. I was just pointing out that was why we couldn't get a map out of the committee that we could all kind of agree on. That was my point. Well, lo and behold, we got a redistricting committee. I haven't pulled the numbers, but basically it's South Central arguing. I'm looking at who's standing over here for the Republicans in this district arguing this map. And for the most part, I've heard from South Central Kansas. I have a little bit from Johnson, but not in large part. I'm wondering whose interest this map is being drawn in. My map, I think, arguably is very objective. The communities, Lawrence is probably the heart and soul of Douglas County. Keeps it together, keeps Douglas County whole, keeps Johnson County whole, puts Wyandotte in the 2nd, and then we draw it, and I tried to keep the forts and the tribes together. I know some of you won't like it, and believe me, that's your decision. But I do think, and I make the point again, I think from a clerk's standpoint, they would approve of this map. Can't argue any cracking and packing here. because I didn't do that. And I told the researcher when we were drawing this, I said, my goal is to keep every county whole, and let's see if it can be done. Because I don't think the committee has approached it from that. And maybe they did, Mr. Chairman. From my standpoint, they haven't. Instead, we've got 4 counties split. We've got 8 voting precincts split on Ad Astra 2. And I think the amendment we had from the senator from Johnson had some splits as well. But, you know, I think it's interesting. We have a rural caucus in the State House. And it'd be interesting to hear from the rural caucus what they think of this map versus this map. You know, I don't know that we have an urban caucus. I know we have a Johnson County delegation, and they meet quite, you know, often. So, and what are they, 38 members now? So that would be more of a urban caucus in some ways. But my map tries to keep the 1st district and the 2nd district as rural as possible. Try to make the 4th district rural. I've kept every congressman with their congressional district number. You know, sometimes candidates get a little upset, you know, and you draw a district and you don't give me my same number because my signs are different and I had my number on my signs, and that's an expense you don't need. So I tried to make sure each congressman has their district and still is in their district based on the map. Did I check with them? No. It's not my job. I'm not here to draw a map for the incumbent congressman in Washington, D.C. That sounds kind of swampish. Mr. Chairman, I'll stand for questions.
Questions for the senator from Brown, senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the good senator from Brown for submitting this map as it relates to an open forum. I do have a couple of questions, and the first question is, if he will accept them, is this the Sunflower 3 map, or do I have the right one on my desk?
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
According to the revisor, this is the map that I requested, and it is Sunflower 3.
Thank you, Mr.
Senator
Chairman.
from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next question, I couldn't help but notice the population deviation, which appeared quite sizable. Would the good senator like to respond to that?
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Mr. Chairman, I noticed on Ad Astra it was just rated as 0, so I have to assume there was no deviation at all. And as I've stated, we are allowed some deviation. We have to make things, and I think that the deviation argument is weakened very much by the communities that are represented in this map and are kept whole. Every county, every voting precinct. None of them are divided. And if you notice the deviation in the 3rd district, it's under. It allows for growth in the most growable area. The population is booming over there, I understand. But it allows for some growth there, which will happen. And it allows for a little bit overtake in the 2nd. Because I think that certain parts of the rural parts of that are probably going to decline a little bit. So that's where the major deviation is at. But I don't consider it major because it's 0.79% is the largest one, and 0.92 is the largest one. That's not even, I mean, court isn't going to care on that. Thank you.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
I thank the senator for that response. I do have one final question at this point. We've heard a lot of talk about Johnson County keeping it together, and I see from this map, if I'm reading it right, all of Wyandotte County was put in the 2nd. Is that correct?
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Yes.
Further questions from the senator from McPherson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No further questions at this time.
Further questions for the senator from Brown, Senator from Leavenworth, Senator Pittman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I stand in support of this map, and I'm refreshed by the approach by the good senator from Brown, my Republican colleague who's put this together. If you look at this, you can describe it. When we go and introduce ourselves out to crowds, Mr. Chairman, we often say, hey, this is my district. It goes from here to here to here to here. This map, we can describe that. We can say, here's our counties. We know what this district is. On the original map that we're considering today, CD2 has a very difficult time describing exactly where their boundaries are. And that's just a common sense test. To use the good chairman's words, this looks like common sense to me. This smacks of easy to understand. And I know there's a deviation. Honestly, I was pulling together the same map, and I had it down to about 10 votes on that, but I ran out of time, as we know, because of the lengthy process with the research folks. But the deviation, when I asked the research folks, how much can we deviate? He said, if you have an argument for the courts and it makes sense, you've got a lot of latitude. Normally, it's been going down, 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 but they will take arguments and consider it. And so, even though I see this as a pretty high deviation as well, it could be fixed, but I love the fact that he's keeping the counties whole. My map, unfortunately, had gone down and took Spring Hill in Miami County. I'm not on redistricting. I didn't hear the same people that the good senator from Miami had heard. And now I realize that splitting that county up was not the right idea when I was doing that in my map. And so I now see this is fantastic. This is a really nice map. It keeps it whole. I don't even know the partisan breakdown of this, and I think this is a good map. And I'm willing to support that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
I might just say, with the two previous maps that we've looked at and the comments on deviation here, everybody in this body should understand that you can take, if you look at the deviation numbers, okay? I left them the same because I wanted the counties whole, because I think that's the basis we should be approaching building a map on. Gerrymandering. So if you got 6,700 people too much in the second and 5,800 people too little in the third, all you have to do is any one of those 6 counties, or 7, surrounding the 2 green, Douglas and Johnson, sure the committee can make that little 6,000 shift on one county. That would break one county. It wouldn't be whole, but it would sure solve your deviation problem. And it's very simple to do, Mr. Chairman. I didn't do it because I could have got to 0, Dick. It's real easy to get to 0 on this map, but you'll have to split one county, not split it very much. You probably can grab 2 precincts down there in an urban area next to it and put it in. The deviation argument is a very, very weak argument to vote against this map. This map has all the counties whole, and Western Kansas ought to be voting for this map. 2nd District folks, I understand the Southeast. If you think you got to be in the 2nd District and you don't want to be represented by the congressman from the 4th, I don't see too much difference there, but you know what? I think this is a good map. And I think this is a far better starting point for us than what Ad Astra is. I didn't have to go back and tweak to fix the tribal areas. This map is a lot in common with the old map we had prior to the change 10 years ago. Keeps the forts together. So very little would have to be tweaked. I hope the House picks up on this and looks at it. I don't know whether they've kicked their congressional map out or not, but if there's any more comments or questions, Mr. Chairman, I'm ready.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say I appreciate the good senator from Brown bringing this map. And this is what I hoped would have come out in our committee, because this is, looking at this, I think it's a very good map, and I wish we had testimony in committee hearing about this, because as I have been talking about the core of the Kansas City Metro, I can't support this because I don't know if Wyandotte and Johnson County, which I heard overwhelmingly keep the KC Metro together, but if we had had a hearing on this to be able to have the public comment on this. So I just say thank you to the senator for bringing this, and I would love to hear what my constituents in my area think about this map. So thank you.
Further questions for the senator from Brown? Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So my understanding is first that this map keeps every county whole. And I very much appreciate that after having looked at the first map, the Ad Astra map that was brought forward. But I also realize that we're not talking about a large fix, and we have adjacent districts 2 and 3 that could compensate for that deviation if that's necessary. I hope if that's done, it could be done through whole precincts. And I would very much appreciate the Redistricting Committee taking a look at this map.
Further questions, Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's the first time I've said anything during this discussion, this debate, this consideration for the map, or now the maps that are before us. And I'm compelled to do that first because I have very publicly said during the hearings that we had, brief though they were, being in the core of Wyandotte County and whose Senate district has been carved out to go to the hinterlands or elsewhere in what's now called Ad Astra from Wyandotte County. I've always been of the mantra that what my constituents want is to remain with Johnson County in what is now the 3rd Congressional District. We are a community of interest, and the effort for the underlying map, and I will be speaking briefly on that, but really to the amendment, Mr. Chair. The underlying map severs a community of interest. The Ad Astra does. There's no question about it, and though I'm not clairvoyant, having been through this process of redistricting now thrice, as the senator from Brown has, as he mentioned, this is my 3rd rodeo with this, and reading the tea leaves, Ad Astra's headed for veto, then it's headed to the court. May not have sufficient to override the veto. We've got to do something differently, period. It's not going to stand muster, and Ad Astra means, as we know, our motto, to the stars. The rest of that map is per aspera, because it's going to be difficult to make that map stick. So Senator from Brown has brought, it causes me to have to backpedal, because I've heard my constituents clearly in the Kansas City metropolitan area. We are a community that wants to stay together, Wyandotte and Johnson County, and the point has been made time and again, something's got to give over the deviation, over the statistical number that we have to reach for the congressional district, and on and on. I've told my folks clearly, we don't want to divide Wyandotte County. The obvious sever should be southern Johnson County and the growth that's being there because of the political and social economic differences that are in Johnson County. Johnson County, what a wonderful place. We've got the most, in this chamber, progressive and the most conservative senators from one county. They go all across the political diaspora and all behind the JO, or Johnson County. So there should be found some regional divisions inside of one county when we look at what a community of interest is in an existing congressional, and it should be all of Wyandotte and, I don't know, whatever percentage of Johnson County that starts getting into the different or differing mindsets wherever those striations would be found. So to this map, and having shared with my constituents, I'm going to fight very hard. We're not going to sever Wyandotte from Johnson County, though Johnson County in and of itself is an anomaly and has its own severances along political and social lines. And here comes the senator from Brown. I had not seen this map, didn't hear anything about it. I've had to look at this at first blush and think about splitting Wyandotte County out of the 3rd and taking it wholly into uncharted territories where we have not been before, but we'll keep all of Wyandotte County whole. And we'll probably pass muster. Don't know what the governor would do on this. I don't know if Senator from Brown has been in touch with them on the 2nd floor. But I got to go back home and tell my people, because I am going to vote for this, that I voted to take Wyandotte County, to split Wyandotte County and Johnson County, when I've been saying all along, oh no, we're going to stay together. But something's got to give. And this is, again, somebody was talking about, I think the carrier of this amendment said he hasn't run the numbers. And then the senator from Leavenworth, I don't know the politics behind or the registration of politics or even the trends, because believe it or not, just because you're a Democrat doesn't mean you toe the party line or vote like a Democrat should. We see that in DC, we see that here. Just because you're a Republican, and now it's become, what kind of Republican are you? You know, or you want to, anyway, I don't know what the registration is or how it goes with the trends of politics, but I do want to thank Senator Pyle, the senator from Brown, for bringing this, because it seems as if the cohesion that's necessary to pass muster, to override the difficulties of the legislative process or the executive affirmation, will be eased. It seems as if communities and counties won't have as strong as an objection as they might. When you look at dividing a county along I-70, as is proposed in my county, in my district, in Wyandotte County, when you have people to the north of I-70 and people to the south of I-70 who want to have similar views reflected in Congress, and certainly in our state legislature, but would be split. For what reason, no one has been yet able to justify, though I know the senator from Lynchburg, senator from McPherson is attempting to. So I backpedal in my words to the people of the 4th Senate District and the people of Wyandotte County. I support a split, splitting Wyandotte County from Johnson County, and might be the only feasible opportunity to get through this process. Again, my 3rd such in my time in the legislature, and I wish the senator from Brown, I guess, has done his homework. All the very best in his passage, and I thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As an individual who grew up on a farm, then later moved to an urban area, I will tell you, and having been through a redistricting process, it feels weird when your rural area is all of a sudden part of a metro area and vice versa. Because as the former senator who just spoke alluded to, it feels like you were losing your voice when you're not in an area with common interests, common economy. And I do believe it's been mentioned that it is important to keep rural areas together, keep metro areas together because of similar economic interests as well as social interests. There are other options out there that accomplish this, but I will say this one does have a better feel to it, a better cohesion of those important elements. And because it does work for the people I represent in Johnson County, I will support this. Thank you.
Other questions for the senator from Brown? Seeing none, Senator, you may close on your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm quite sure that Senator Marshall and Senator Moran are happy with the maps they have. And are probably glad that Kansas isn't divided in half one way or another for Senate districts. I bet they're so happy that they represent the whole state and nobody can move their boundaries. Congressmen and their staff are probably all listening and glued in and watching what's going on here, and we say hello to you all, but come back to Kansas more often. Anyway, I find it interesting today that in the prayer was for leadership of both parties in here. I believe God heard those prayers. I believe right now he's working on each one of us. We have a map. We have a map that keeps every county whole. You have an opportunity to go back home and tell your constituents, I kept your county whole. Or you have an opportunity to go back home. Yeah, that's what leadership brought. It's what the committee put out. It's not easy bringing maps. It's not easy bringing maps because there's a lot of political consequence. You don't think I'm going to get beat up for taking portions out from certain entities, for changing the way a district is now? Absolutely. This is worth bringing. I've been watching a show called Mountain Men, and I've learned that for every hide, there's enough brains in that animal to tan that hide. I only hope I have enough brains to tan my hide. I want to thank the research staff and the reviser for getting this done in a very fashionable way, for working so cordially. It is easy to work with them, you know, and I appreciate that. Not only that, as Senator from Wyandotte said, you know, he hadn't seen it. I kept this very close to my chest for obvious reasons around here we all know. Mr. Chairman, with that, I move my amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Roll call has been requested. Seeing 5 hands, a roll call is in order. The clerk will call the roll.
Alley. Baumgardner. Billinger. Bowers. Clays. Orson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Bag. Bauskado. Francisco. Rossage. Haley. Hawk. Hildebrand. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Close. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Pittman. Kyle. Reichman. Steffen. Straub. Sullentrop. Sykes. Thompson. Tyson. Ware. Warren. Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Senator from Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we get a preliminary count, please?
14 aye, 18 nay. Does any senator wish to change their vote? Senator from Montgomery, Senator Peck.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate you remembering the county that I'm from. I go from pass to no.
Vote will be recorded. Any further changes of votes? Seeing none, does any senator wish to explain their vote? Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just want to explain my pass. I think this is a good attempt at a map, and if we had a hearing on this and heard testimony from those that testified in the Wyandotte and Johnson County, I think this is actually has potential, but without having the input from those communities when they overwhelmingly said, keep that greater Kansas City metro together, I cannot support this without having their input. So I'm going to be consistent to wanting to hear the will of the Kansas voters. So thank you.
Further explanations, Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I voted aye on this map called Sunflower 3, despite it dividing the congressional district where I am and separating Wyandotte County from Johnson County, which have historically been in the same congressional district for a long time. I recognize that we have to shear some numbers away from the existing third, and this looked to be, again, the best opportunity to do that. I will be keeping my word to the Kansas City metropolitan area, which is Johnson and Wyandotte County, and not support any map, and will vigorously work against any map that divides the district. And through the process, the executive branch and with the courts, this was the most, or seems to be the most expeditious way to find harmony, and I did support this map and do support the concept behind it. And I would like my comments on the journal. Thank you.
It will be recorded. Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With your permission, I'd like to join the explanation, a vote given by the minority leader from Johnson. Thank you.
Your permission. So ordered. Senator from Miami, Senator Baumgartner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to join the comments of the senator from Johnson with her permission, and I would like to add, it would have benefited the caucus to have heard. I appreciate the work of the senator from Brown. I could have clued him in that one of the fastest growing percentage-wise communities in our state is Spring Hill. It is the fastest growing percentage-wise school district. It happens to straddle Johnson and Miami County, so we could have picked up that pocket. But without that opportunity for it to be worked in a committee or shared with caucus prior to the floor, couldn't amend that. But thank you so much, Mr. Chair.
With the permission of the senator from Johnson, will be added to her comments. Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson.
Thank you. I'll change my no vote, or yes vote to no.
So ordered. Senator from Johnson, Senator Gossage.
With her permission, I would like to join the comments from the senator from Miami, Senator Baumgartner, and would add that I could not vote for this because I needed more information. I wish this could have been brought to committee and or caucus this morning, and we could have had more time to vet it. Thank you.
With permission of the senator from Miami, so ordered. Pardon, Senator from Johnson.
I believe the senator from Miami joined the comments.
She added her own. The senator from Johnson was yes. Further explanations of vote? Seeing none, the clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. 13 voting in favor, 20 against, 2 present. The motion fails. We are back on the bill. Questions for the senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn, Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having heard the comments now and having run one amendment, I'm going to make a motion to refer this back to committee so that they can look deeper at these two maps and maybe come up with a little better solution than what we have on the floor. And, you know, I'm not, you vote what you want to vote, but I'm going to, like I said, I move to send this back to committee.
Thank you. The motion is not in order. We have already debated the motion to re-refer to committee. It has been voted upon in this body previously.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Having voted on the prevailing side, then I make a motion to reconsider our actions on sending this back to committee. I kind of wanted to see if you were going to do that. So anyway, I'd move that we reconsider our actions on that motion.
Motion's in order. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The noes appear to have it. Division has been called for. Roll call has been called for. Not seeing a sufficient number of hands. There we go, 5 hands. The roll call vote is in order. Clerk will call the roll. Reminder, a yes vote is to reconsider the previous action. A no vote is to not reconsider the previous action. It is not the motion to re-refer.
Alley. Baumgardner. Dillinger. Bowers. Clays. Corson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Bagg. Kraus-Godot. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Hawk. Hildebrand. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Cluse. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Pittman. Pyle. Reichman. Steffen. Straub. Sullentrop. Sykes. Thompson. Tyson. Ware. Warren. Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Senator, you don't need to stand. Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to change my vote to a no, please.
So ordered. For clarification, you're changing that from a no to a yes. From yes to a no. Okay. So ordered. Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to change my pass to a yes.
So ordered. Senator from Shawnee, Senator O'Shea.
Thank you. May I request a preliminary count?
$16 yes, 17 no. Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Senator from Shawnee, Senator O'Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I change my vote to a no?
So ordered. Any explanations of vote? Seeing none, the clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. (16 voting yes, 18 having voted nay, 1 present. The motion fails. We are back on the bill. Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have another amendment, and with your permission, I'll be turning it in.
You do not have the number?
I need to turn it in, but the
okay.
RS is 2792.
Okay. We'll stand at ease while that's turned in. The chair recognizes the senator from Brown, Senator Pyle, to explain his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, if you didn't like the last map, you're probably not going to like this one. But in the interest of having fun drawing maps, again, I will state that one of the main reasons for offering these maps is to get them in the record. There are a lot of alternative ways to draw a map, and the courts will know that, but they will likely refer back to some of the maps because 10 years ago, that's what they did. They took some of the maps that had been drawn and they referred back to them, asked research, I guess, to provide them with 3 maps, and they were given 3 maps that were drawn by our legislative research department, I presume. And so I want to make sure this map is in the record because I think that it keeps the rural interests, again, where they should be. You will notice that I have heavily divided Sedgwick County I have kept Johnson whole. I have divided Douglas and Wyandotte, and Wyandotte very simply is divided along the river, so that the river is the division. And the deviation is, if you're concerned about deviation, this one's far better than the last one. Numbers are very close. So again, it's a map that could be looked at by the committee and worked. If you want to get to exact zero, you could. But it does divide, I think, 3 counties, which I believe the map in front of us at Astra divides 4. So, but with everybody talking about how they want to keep the metro area together, I did that as far as we could get to the river. But that was one of the things I tried to do. And it's just a different way of looking at it, Mr. Chairman, so I'll stand for questions.
Senator from Brown is standing for questions. Any questions for the Senator from Brown? Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Wyandotte County is divided, split up again, not a part of a whole district. I'm out.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, does another map divide any county into 3 districts?
Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
I don't believe so, and I noted that when I did it, but I was trying to put Lawrence in with Johnson County because I think that they're communities of interest. That corridor is driven heavily, and so I tried to do, I'm just trying to draw a map. I don't expect this to get very many votes, but I do want it in the record for the courts to look at.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that answer. I believe some people in Douglas would be more comfortable with this map than the one that shows us joining the first. So I appreciate those efforts, but I'm not sure I can support this map. Thank you.
Further questions for the Senator from Brown? Senator from Leavenworth, Senator Pittman.
Just briefly, I'll just note to everybody that this is the first map we've had that actually takes a closer look at Sedgwick, keeps the core of CD4 in Wichita, but does look for alternatives in that range. And so that's quite an interesting thing to see a different county that's being approached to have a split. So I appreciate the Senator for looking for innovative ideas. Would love to see more of these ideas in committee, obviously, but that's not the case. That's going to happen right now.
Further questions for the Senator from Brown? Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle, you may close.
Wow, thank you. I figured this one would be short. I figured the first one would be the most difficult. I'll just say this too, to the people from the 4th District. How does it feel to have your county carved up? And yet you target Douglas County and Ad Astra, target Wyandotte County. I'm just saying, if the shoe fits, wear it. So, Mr. Chairman, I do think it's a practical map, but I do think that the deviations are good. So you can draw maps, and I did think that the city of Lawrence would very much appreciate being put rather with the 3rd than they would be drawn into the 1st. But and I understand Senator from Wyandotte not liking that being divided. I do completely understand that. Again, remember, 20 years ago, I had my district cut in half, and I didn't appreciate it, and the people that had had that district for quite some time didn't appreciate it. But it's, we draw maps up here, and we can draw them, as you can see, pretty much any which way you want. So, with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll move my amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Noes appear to have it. Noes do have it. Motion fails. We're back on the bill. Senator from Brown, Senator Pyle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have another amendment, and
you have the number.
Let me get to it, and we will read you the RS number. I will turn this in. The RS number is 2791.
We'll bring that up while you turn that in, and then we'll pass out the maps. We'll pause while those maps are distributed. To explain your amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is Metal Arc 5. And again, I tried to keep the forts together, tried to keep some common interest. And if you look at the deviation, I think that's pretty good. It's pretty close to zero. Again, I divided Sedgwick County, tried to keep the city together, put the rural areas out western Kansas. And Douglas County, again, is divided into 3 parts. So no, don't take that personally, Senator from Douglas, anybody from Douglas. Again, Wyandotte County is divided. Shawnee and Johnson County are the 2 of the 5 largest counties that I did not take a scalpel to. And, but I do think that people need to understand that, you know, you've got certain, you know, you've got the votes to keep your county whole. I guess, you know, you're safe here. But if you don't, it's pretty much a exercise of carving out what you want, where you want it. And that's what's been done with Ad Astra. I think it's sad that this committee chose to not send the 2 maps that were offered back, to take a good hard look at them. We have plenty of time. We're not running out of time. Second week of session, we've got plenty of time. But Mr. Chairman, with that, I'll stand for questions.
Questions on the amendment? Seeing none, Senator, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I don't expect this to pass. I do want it offered as an amendment just for the sake of something to look at. And, you know, these maps are probably, whatever does pass this chamber is likely headed for veto. I haven't talked to the governor, so I don't know, but I'm assuming so. They're going to come back and ask you to override that veto. Imagine that'd be party line vote if it passes. But if it does, we know it's destined for the courts. And, you know, courts are going to be looking at things. Maybe it'll be your county that gets carved up. Maybe it'll be mine. I don't know. But I do believe that I offered earlier an amendment, as well as with these, that are good faith effort, at drawing some good lines. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll just move my amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion fails. We're back on the bill. Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that, you know, if the real intention was to try to come up with a consensus map, and again, that was really what I thought would be the goal of the committee, would be to work towards something that would keep us out of the courts, where we would all make compromise, but where we would be able to give Kansans certainty in the product that we produced, that it wouldn't be hung up in courts for months and months in litigation. I'm wondering if there was ever any thought given to a map that, if we're going to take the premise that Johnson County as a whole is the community, is the core of the 3rd district. If we're going to accept for a moment, which I don't, but if we're going to accept for a moment that that's true, did we give consideration to a map that would have kept Johnson County whole and put as much of Wyandotte as possible into the 3rd district until we reached the proper number?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the best of my recall, we explored a number of options, but I don't remember that specifically.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I think that's very unfortunate and really goes to what has been my frustration with this process from the very beginning, from when the town halls were announced all the way up until yesterday in committee, when I was told that I didn't have time to read the written testimony of my constituents about the maps. I do believe that if there was a goal to develop a consensus map, that is something we could have looked at in committee, and I think it's regrettable that we didn't have a chance to look at starting with a map that would have kept all of Johnson whole, and then seeing how much of Wyandotte we could have incorporated, and to see if we could have reached some level of agreement. I know that we could all probably have an endless, tit for tat and share various anecdotes of what the relationships are between Johnson and Wyandotte, between Johnson and Anderson, Johnson and Franklin, Johnson and Miami. And I know we could be here all day if we did that. And I'm not disagreeing with any examples that have been offered before, but I will say that for historical purposes, we have in the 3rd district a 40-year history of keeping the 3rd district as the core part of Johnson and the core part of Wyandotte County together. It's always been all of Johnson. It has not always been all of Wyandotte, as was pointed out, but it has always been the core of that metro for the past 40 years, for more than my entire lifetime. That has always been the 3rd congressional district. One thing that I do want to elevate, and this will be the last time that I'm planning to speak, is this core 4 issue. I heard from yesterday, I heard from one of my county commissioners, and she said that she's on the Johnson County Commission. She says, we've never met with Anderson County, and as long as she's been on the commission. She said, we do, however, serve on multiple committees with Wyandotte County, where we're working on issues from transit to water to transportation. For those of us who are from the core of the Johnson Wyandotte, what we call the core 4, I'll point to an article from the Kansas City Star from January 19th, and this deals with Kansas City, Missouri Mayor Quentin Lucas, but he said he plans to again convene a meeting with leaders of the core 4, Kansas City, Jackson County, Wyandotte County, and Johnson County, to discuss measures to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. He said, it's time for us to get back in touch. It's important for us to go back to acting in concert. And that acting in concert is really important. That's really what we're talking about when we are talking about how on the Kansas side of the Kansas-Missouri state line, we have those 2 counties who do very much act in concert when it comes to healthcare, transportation, water, education, business development, economic growth, things of that nature. That was testimony from the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce was submitted to that effect. But I want to point out one thing that we haven't heard yet, because I want to make sure that we are also centering rural and counties that do not have as much of a population. I want to make sure that they are addressed in this conversation. I've talked about my concerns about the current 3rd district in the Ad Astra map from the perspective of what it does to Wyandotte County. Talked about my concerns about the 2nd from the perspective of what it does to Lawrence and Douglas County. But the 3rd district, I am very worried about the kind of representation, no matter who the congressional member is, no matter what party they're from, I'm worried about the kind of representation that a county like Anderson, which has 7,835 people, will be getting from a member who is going to be from Johnson County. I'm worried about the time that that member would spend. I'm worried about their investment in relationships, both with constituents, with stakeholders, with businesses, with local elected officials, that they will invest when they have 602,401 voters in Johnson County. Are they really going to pay attention to these 7,835 voters in Anderson County? Similarly, are they really going to pay attention to the 25,996 voters in Franklin County, when really whether they win or lose re-election is going to be determined by and large by the 401,000 voters in Johnson County? You know, Miami, 34,191, they may get adequate treatment, but I am very worried about Franklin and Anderson. And one of the things that we absolutely did not hear at all during our town hall was we did not hear from folks in Anderson or Franklin County that they did not believe that they were not currently being adequately represented in the 2nd District, and that they wanted to be represented by the member of Congress from the 3rd District. So I want to make sure that we're making that point, because that point is important. It's important to those rural voters who, just like I'm concerned about minority voters in Wyandotte, I'm just as concerned about rural voters in Anderson County who have very, very different needs from folks in Johnson County. And I want to make sure that we have maps that serve their needs every bit as well as my constituents' needs are served in Johnson County. I think we owe that to all Kansans, and that's not been a part of that conversation. So I didn't want this debate to end without making that point. You know, one of the things that I did when I was first told that I was going to be on the Redistricting Committee was I talked to everybody that I could of both parties who was involved in redistricting in 2012. I said, what are the lessons? What do I need to know? What do I need to learn from what happened in 2012? And the advice from folks who were on all different sides of the aisle, all different political philosophies, was that this committee needs to do serious work. We need to be putting out maps that do not need to go to the courts. We do not want another 2012 where we're in June of an election year and we're having the court redraw maps. I think we basically abdicated our duty, our responsibility in that regard. It's our job under the Kansas Constitution to do this, not just to rush something through and then throw ourselves again to the mercy of the court. And I do believe that there was a moment, there was an opportunity for us to do that. I hope that moment has not passed. I will not be supporting the Ad Astra 2 map. I would ask my colleagues to also not support the Ad Astra 2 map for these reasons. Unfortunately, I believe that we are finally at the culmination of what Susan Wagle said on September 25th, 2020 to the Pachyderm Club in Wichita. She said, if you give us a Republican supermajority, we can draw 4 Republican congressional districts. We can take out Sharice Davids up in the 3rd. We can do that. I guarantee you we can draw 4 Republican congressional maps. But we can't do that unless we have a 2/3 majority in the House and Senate. I believe this is the culmination of those comments from Senator Wagle. That is what the supermajority is trying to do. Otherwise, they would have treated this process from the announcement of the town halls all the way up through the way the committee was run this week completely differently if the goal was really to best serve the interests of Kansans. So I would ask this body to not vote for this map. I would ask us to vote it down, get us back in committee, and let's work on something that serves rural, urban, all Kansans alike, serves them well, meets our guidelines, complies with legal muster. Thank you.
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Normally I wouldn't respond, but I will reiterate that we have run the numbers. Reed Davis would have won the new district just as much as she did before. That's true of all of the other congressional members. So there's no attempt to eliminate a Democratic district. Yes, I'd like to yield to the president.
Oh, Senator from Butler, Senator Masterson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to push back on a couple of the other false assumptions or assertions, and by bringing in a quote of somebody that's not even part of the body, it's kind of irrelevant. And the facts are, the member from the 3rd would still have won the 3rd and 20. The numbers are there to show it. Biden's numbers, Governor Kelly's numbers in 18 in that district show that it's a fair representation. Another thing that jumped out at me from the prior conversation, being from the 4th, County 2 from, I think, Elk, probably the smallest of the counties in the 4th. I mean, maybe less than 1,500 people in the entire county. By the way, we're talking about residents, not voters, right? We don't draw the maps on voters. We draw the map on residents. And so that district is represented by a person from the largest city in the state, largest single city in the state. And when we had our tour down there in Wichita, we heard from, I think it was a representative from Harper County, which is also a very tiny county. I don't know their population top of my head, but it's got to be small. Talking about how they appreciated the diversity of that from rural to urban and how that worked in the 4th district. And so I appreciate the concern. We're concerned about the people in Anderson. That is not nearly the disparity that you have down in the 4th because of the makeup of our state. And I thought it was very well articulated by the senator from Miami that the connection between from the corridor and the 3rd. So I think that's also, it's another red herring, but we're washing those today. But it is a false assertion that this 3rd district is somehow given up or that anybody's trying to be taken out. It's just simply false in the numbers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The yield returns to the senator from McPherson. Nothing further. Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you. I have an amendment. It's number 2789.
Pause while that's handed out.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was a map that was introduced by the League of Women Voters. We did not have a hearing on this in committee, but we had several members testify on this. And so as the good senator from McPherson said, this is a way that we can have this discussion. So I just wanted to bring this to the body as another option since we did not get the opportunity to really dig into this map in committee, and I am getting information, but I will be honest, this is more compact than Ad Astra 2, but I would be happy to answer questions, but I will, in all honesty, because we did not dig into this in depth in committee, I do not know a lot of detail on it.
Questions on the amendment? Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In looking not at the map, but at the wording of the amendment itself, I'm seeing a list of voting districts. Can I assume that that means that no voting districts were split and that in fact this map although it has some splits in counties, does not split voting precincts.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
I can guarantee it does not split those 8 districts in Douglas County that were split in Ad Astra 2, but I do, okay, that is correct. The revisor said this does not split any voting districts. So thank you for the question, and my apologies for not knowing that off the top of my head.
Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Not a problem. I do appreciate getting that information. I also got an email from my county clerk, who obviously has been listening in to some of our discussion, and he pointed out that there were 2 counties, Kanawha and Lecompton, or townships, Kanawha and Lecompton, that he specifically testified about at the hearings in August and presented the problems that he had with those splits in those voting precincts. Those splits remain in the Ad Astra map. So that was the reason for my question. I think it's important to my county clerk. I think it's going to be important to other county clerks, and I appreciate that this does not split voting precincts.
Further questions on the amendment? Seeing none, you may close.
All right, I say thank you to the senator from Douglas for clarifying that. And with that, I would move my amendment and ask for a roll call vote.
You've heard the amendment. There are 5 hands. A roll call is in order. The clerk will call the roll.
Hallie. Baumgardner. Billinger. Bowers. Clays. Orson. Dietrich. Dahl. Erickson. Ag. Salcedo. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Hawk. Hildebrand. Holland. Holscher. Kirshen. Cluse. Longbine. Masterson. McGinn. Olson. O'Shea. Peck. Peterson. Petty. Pittman. Pyle. Reichman. Steffen. Straub. Sellentrop. Sykes. Thompson. Tyson. Ware. Warren. Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the senator from Shawnee is on her way back to vote.
And there she is.
There she is. Thank you.
Does any senator wish to change their vote? Senator from Shawnee, Senator O'Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I vote no.
Any further changes of votes? Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Seeing none, the clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. 7 voting yea, 26 having voted nay, 2 present. The motion fails. We are back on the bill. Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Yes, I have a question for the carrier of the bill, please.
Senator from McPherson will stand for questions.
Since the release of this proposed map to the public, I've received lots of questions from constituents about the splitting of particular counties. Can you give me an overview of any history of redistricting as it applies to Wichita and Sedgwick County?
Senator from McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not tracking exactly. I want to know if there has been historically split counties, and the answer is yes. Is that the question?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
In particular, when we look at Sedgwick County, the Wichita area, has that area typically been left whole over the years through redistricting?
I'm going to look
Senator
at
from
my maps.
McPherson, Senator Wilborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll look at my maps. Nearest I can tell from the maps that I'm looking at, Mr. Chairman, I did not see, there may be, but from my file here, I haven't seen any where Sedgwick County was split.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's the understanding of a lot of people from Johnson County as well as Wyandotte County, that Sedgwick County, and in particular Wichita, is allowed to continue to remain whole through the redistricting process, whereas other areas get split when there are viable options that would keep those core areas together. And in the end, I'm not going to support this map, and it comes down to a lot of reasons why, as far as how we're splitting areas that economically have a lot in common, as well as areas that socially have a lot in common. But I do think it's important for the body to realize that with this type of a proposal, with this ad-astra map, it only fans the flames of people in Johnson County, Wyandotte County, and across Kansas that believe the Koch network runs our state government and is controlling these maps. So I will be voting no. Thank you.
Further questions for the carrier of the bill? Seeing none, Senator, you may close. Apologies, we have a latecomer. Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question, but I do want to again reiterate my concerns that the map that we are voting on looks as districts that are far less compact, far less contiguous than the alternatives we had to review. I am also very concerned that the committee seemed to give more consideration to comments made 10 years ago than they did by a county clerk at hearings this year, when there were very specific concerns brought to the Redistricting Committee. I am incredibly disappointed. Even with this map, those precincts could have been kept whole. There were two that were mentioned, Kenwaka and Lecompton. Thank you.
Any further questions for the carrier of the bill? Going once, going twice. Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank the body for the robust and earnest dialogue. It was very important to vent your feelings and to put forth your thoughts as it relates to this very important process. I also want to take a little time out to apologize for my good senator friend from Douglas. Yes, KU does have agriculture classes, so I recognize that. Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I move that when the committee rises and report sub for Senate Bill 355 favorable for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. The chair recognizes the Assistant Majority Leader from Cali, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carried.
Clerk will read the committee report.
On motion of Senator Alley, the Senate resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of General Orders with Senator Clays in the chair. Recommended, Senate Bill 355 be amended by adoption of the committee report recommending a substitute bill, and the substitute bill be passed.
Chair recognizes Senator from Saline, Senator Clays.
I move adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Cali, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move an emergency be declared, the rules suspended, and the following bill be advanced to final action and roll call. Senate substitute for Senate Bill 355.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. We're now ready for final action. On this roll call, we'll take the following. Senate sub for SB 355. Clerk will read the title.
Substitute Senate Bill 355, an act concerning reapportionment.
Clerk will call the roll.
Alley, Baumgardner, Billinger, Bowers, Clays, Orson, Dietrich, Dahl, Erickson, Fagg, Bauskado, Francisco, Gossage, Haley, Hawk, Hildebrand, Holland, Polscher, Kirshen, Close, Longbine, Masterson, McGinn, Olson, O'Shea, Peck, Peterson, Petty, Pittman, Kyle, Reichman, Steffen, Straub, Sullentrop, Sykes, Thompson, Tyson, Ware, Warren, Wilborn.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Does any senator wish to explain their vote? Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Ad Astra 2 map violates a number of redistricting guidelines that are agreed to follow by legislative leadership, and it is clearly drawn for partisan gain. It splits communities of interest while combining communities with no established economic, cultural, or historical ties to the 3rd Congressional District. And to add insult to injury, it places Lawrence, which has always been in the Eastern Kansas District, during the modern redistricting area in the Big First. This map does not serve Kansas fairly. That's to be expected, since this process has never been fair. It has never been about listening to Kansas. It has never been about keeping our communities together. The majority party has used selective listening to justify a map that makes no sense for Kansas unless you see congressional districts as a means to one-party control rather than fundamental to the democratic representation. I vote no, and I would like my remarks on the journal.
So ordered. Further explanation. Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Haley.
With your permission, I'd like to join the remarks of the Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
So ordered. Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Similarly, with her permission, I'd like to join the remarks and explanation from the senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
So ordered. Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
And especially because she mentioned Lawrence, with her permission, I would like to join the comments of the senator from Johnson.
So ordered. Senator from Wyandotte, Senator Petty.
Thank you. I'd also like to join the remarks of the senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
So ordered. Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Ditto.
So ordered. Further explanation of vote. Are there any senator wish to change their vote? Seeing none, clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. "26 having voted in favor and 9 against, this having reached the constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. Introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions, the clerk will read.
Senate Bill 369 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning taxation. Senate Bill 370 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning the Kansas National Guard. Senate Bill 371 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning traffic regulations. Senate Bill 372 by Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning education. Senate Bill 373 by Committee on Public Health and Welfare, an act making and concerning appropriations for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2022 for the University of Kansas Medical Center.
This constitutes introduction of SB 369 through 373. Are there announcements? Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues wanted to make this the last call if you wanted to co-sponsor a resolution honoring pregnancy maintenance resource centers in Kansas and across the United States, and honoring the life-affirming impact of pregnancy maintenance resource centers on the women, men, children, and communities that they serve. So after we adjourn today, I will be turning it in to the reviser. If you'd like to co-sign, please see me at my desk. Thank you.
Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Peterson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Joint Committee on Information and Technology will meet Monday the 24th at 11:30 in room 218 North, 218 North.
Any further announcements? Seeing none, shall I recognize the Majority Leader from Cali, Senator Alley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adjourn until 2:30 p.m. on Monday, January 24th, 2022. We will be performing.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes. Senate is adjourned.